Ready when you are?
Yeah, I'm ready. Is everyone ready? Yes? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call to order the regular meeting of the Berkeley Planning Commission. Today is Tuesday, March 22nd. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Megan, could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Planning Commissioner Bartis?
Here.
Planning Commissioner Dolan?
Here.
Planning Commissioner Kempner?
Here.
Planning Commissioner Patterson?
Here.
Planning Commissioner Petrowski?
He let me know that he had a work conflict this evening.
Okay. Planning Commissioner Stern?
Here.
Planning Commissioner Richardson?
Here.
Planning Commissioner Smith?
Here.
And Chair Kapelanski.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Would anyone like to make a motion excusing Commissioner Petrowski?
So moved. Support.
Could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Bartis?
Yes.
Dolan?
Yes.
Kempner?
Yes.
Patterson?
Yes.
Stern?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kapelanski?
Yes. All right, next up we have approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda or motions to approve?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Could you call the roll, please?
Smith?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Stern?
Yes.
Patterson?
Yes.
Kempner?
Yes.
Dolan?
Yes.
Bartis?
Yes.
Kapelanski?
Yes. Moving on to approval of the minutes, we have two sets of minutes from the regular meeting on February 22nd and then the work session on March 1st. Let's start with the February 22nd. Were there any amendments to the minutes from February 22nd?
Ms. Chairman,
Yes.
there's something that we talked about, I think it was brought up right here somewhere, about an item, the item 1, regarding slots of some sort in the bottom of the wall to allow for the drainage. And I allow for the drainage that is the existing drainage to continue flowing in some manner, and that's not in here. Unless it is.
So item number 1. If you look at the paragraph that's above, the motion was seconded by Commissioner Kempner. The third item on openings in the bottom of the screen wall.
I stand corrected. I apologize.
It's no problem.
I must have gotten bored by the time I got there. And on page 5, halfway down, Commissioner Richardson asked the applicant if they have any empirical data on their facilities. I believe that's regarding parking?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe if we could add that word in there. Because I think that's going to be an issue we hit with these facilities as we go on. Thank you, that's all I had.
Okay, any other changes or motions to approve the amended minutes?
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Mason-Minette, can you call the roll, please?
Yeah, sorry. Bartis?
okay.
Yes.
Dolan?
Yes.
Kempner?
Yes.
Patterson?
Yes.
Stern?
Yes.
Richardson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Kapelanski?
Yes. And now we have the minutes from the work session on March 1st. Any changes to those?
I wasn't here, and it listed me as present.
Anything else?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Bartis?
Yes.
Dolan? Yes. Kempner,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
Stern,
Yes.
Richardson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Kaplan-Lansky.
Yes.
Motion passes.
So that brings us to communications. There were several items that were provided to us this evening, mostly having to do with various items on the agenda. There was also a planning and zoning news, the community development department report as well. And I think that that's all. So we will reference the various items related to the agenda as we come to those items. That brings us to citizen comment. This would be for items that are not on the agenda this evening. So if there was anyone in the audience who would like to comment on an item that is not on the agenda, we ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, to state your name and address. And just as a reminder, the Planning Commission will not engage you in any discussion. Is there anyone who would like to comment on an item not on the agenda? Please come forward.
Hello, my name is James Campbell, 1591 Catalpa. I'm requesting that the commission reconsider approval of the agenda tonight by removing PSP 0322 from the agenda. I'm basing this on 2 points of order. First point being that Berkley Ordinance 002-22 is not the amendment has not been passed by City Council. The second point of order being that all Planning Commission documents, applications, websites either specify 30 days or 4 weeks for additions to agenda. Quote right from your for the website for the commission: attention businesses, residents, and community members. If you'd like to submit an agenda item for the Planning Commission meeting, the submission deadline is Friday, 4 weeks before the meeting. The notification for the request to make a agenda change was submitted on March 2nd per the records that were provided online. You're a rules-based commission, and I'm asking you to reconsider approval of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on a non-agenda item? Mr. Baumgartner or Ms. Mason-Minnick, do you have any response to those gentlemen's questions?
So on the last point, in terms of this item being placed on the agenda, the applicant had submitted plans before that date. They had just submitted plans for the pre-application meeting, and so once all the plans are in, that's when we say that they have to be in, and then there's time for review in between, so at least 2 weeks turnaround, and then staff makes the decision as to whether to put it on the agenda, if it's complete or not. And we have taken sketch plan requests of materials that are already submitted, including 3712 Mile, a week before the agenda goes out. So while I understand the paper trail that's in the packet that's available online, the request of the applicant is past that 4-week window. All the materials had been in before that.
Okay, so they just requested to be added to the agenda later than they submitted the materials.
As a sketch plan.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And then in terms of the first item.
Yes.
Again, this came up the last time. The City Council has purview over the licenses. And it's been communicated to all of the applicants that they are engaging in the site plan review process, of which sketch plan can be a part at their own risk. And that also the job of the Planning Commission, as you know, is to look at it based on the zoning ordinance as you would look at any other site plan, no matter what the use was.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, we will move on then
to the DDA guidelines. Ms. Mason-Minnick, do you want to give us an overview of that? It looks like there were a few changes from our previous discussions.
Yeah, what we did as Carlisle Wortman Associates is added language, change the proposed language for revised design plan standards, and that would be inserted in your part of your site plan review standards. Everything that's in red and strikeout indicates changes made to the text that you looked at and then marked up as a group. And then what we were hoping for tonight is that you had looked at these, give any edits on them, and then we can come back either at your next meeting, or maybe you might feel that a work session is in order to look at it, with additional zoning ordinance amendments in order to do the bulleted list on page 3 of our memo, in an ordinance form, so you can look at that and we can keep the process moving.
Thank you for turning this around so quickly. It's very much appreciated. Before I open it up to the Planning Commission, is there anyone in the audience who wanted to comment on this item? The DDA Design Guidelines Ordinance? No. Okay. So I will turn that over to the Planning Commission. Any comments, edits, compliments? I have one edit or question.
Well, okay, go ahead. I have a question.
3C, where it says create a safe, this is on page 2, create a safe environment by employing design features to reduce vehicular and pedestrian use. I questioned why we would want to reduce pedestrian use.
Yeah.
So I figured it was some sort of typo.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
That was the only thing I had.
Thanks.
I thought it looked great.
I have a question on 1A. Buildings design shall, blah, 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 character of the surrounding area in relation to the building placement. We talk about landscape, streetscape features, architectural design. Why do we take out parking placement? Because we talk a lot about parking in front of a building, behind the building, on the side of the building. Why did we, refresh my memory, please?
We took out parking placement because we were looking at changing the rules so that in all the districts that are in the DDA area, that they would have to park behind the building. So changing those requirements.
Okay. Let me ask another question. No, never mind. I was gonna say something about a large renovation. We're not gonna make them change their parking, so it's
No.
just for a new development?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Anyone else? Further direction?
I think it looks good.
Looks good. Can we provide comments via email?
I'm sure we could, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
What's the next step?
The next step will be we put this in ordinance form along with, again, specific things to address the lists of the bulleted list on page 3, bring that back to you. If you were satisfied with it, you would call a public hearing. So then my question to you as a group is, do you want to do that next step at your next meeting, which may have quite an agenda? It might not. We don't, that deadline, that 4-month, that deadline is not until this Friday for your next agenda so far. The only thing that's listed and ready to go would be the CIP as your second, is your second time looking at that.
So are you asking us if we're ready to hold the public hearing on this?
No, I'm asking you if next month we brought back this in an ordinance form, would you be prepared, would you rather have it at your regular meeting or would you rather have that at a work session? Not knowing what the agenda is for your regular meeting at this point.
That's a good question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are we talking about just the site plan part of it, or are you also bringing us an ordinance for all the build to line, the greater setbacks, all of that?
All of that in that list. So I imagine that you have 2 pages of text changes in front of you tonight. I imagine those would be another 3 or 4.
So unless anyone objects, I would say if we have just the CIP, then I think we could definitely tackle this as part of our next regular agenda. If it starts to get a little bit more full, perhaps we could look at a work session. Everyone could tentatively reserve that date, and then you could send us an email if we need to.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, I agree. This is about the limits, so to be able to absorb over a weekend.
I agree.
So,
Okay, thank you. So we'll look forward to that sometime next month. Next, we have the rules of procedure. There really weren't any changes. We had talked briefly about the need to excuse members, and it looks like that is required. Did you need anything further from us on that?
Unless you have any other changes you wanted to your bylaws, no.
Okay. Does anyone have any other changes? No?
No.
All right, we will consider the annual review of the bylaws done then. Thank you. All right, that brings us to our first new business for the evening, which is the capital improvements plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to bring this forward for you, and I appreciate everybody showing up, having interest in the CIP this evening. I hope to not disappoint. A little bit of a check-in and a little bit of background on this particular item. Each year, the city goes through a planning process in which it looks ahead and tries to map out what the next, in our case, 6 to 7 years of capital improvements look like. Our capital improvements are largely physical improvements to our built environment. There'll be things, as you can see in here, additions to parks, new equipment, road projects, really anything that is going to live on or comes with a significant dollar amount. As we've talked about a couple years ago, our practice was previously to bring this to you guys in April and just ask for your approval in a single meeting. Based on some of the feedback we got from Planning Commission a couple years ago, you guys wanted the opportunity to have a conversation about this prior to the April meeting, and so we'd like to bring you guys an early draft. This is so early, in fact, that the Department of Public Works is still working to complete theirs, and so we actually don't have that particular section just yet, but we can go through a lot of the other portions here. The city's process for developing its annual budget really runs in earnest from about early February and all the way up until the approval date, which is specified in the city's charter as the third Monday in May. So you can see we're right in the middle of that process right now. So our fiscal year here, as you'll see, there's split years. We start our fiscal year. We celebrate New Year's Day on July 1st every year, and that runs all the way through June 30th of the next year. So we're already talking about some of the things that we think are going to happen all the way in through June of 2023, just for the next budget year alone. This particular year, our capital improvements plan runs all the way through the far, far future of 2029. So you see, it's a pretty daunting task to try to figure out everything that we might do, but a good number of our projects, our equipment and the like has a planned end of life. And we use that planned end of life and save for it and start to develop plans around making sure that nothing goes too long without being getting the required maintenance or replacements needed. So that's a little bit of background on the capital improvements plan. The state law does require a dual approval from both the Planning Commission as well as the City Council. So that'll be what the ask will be when I come back before this body at the April meeting. But right now, again, wanted to go through the more conversational portion of it, kind of let you know which way we're moving. Thanks to this body and all of your hard work over the last 2 years, we can take much of our planning process and align it with the master plan. Which is an incredibly important document. It literally puts resources, kind of puts our money where our mouth is, and make sure, and so I'll note as we walk through here how that alignment goes. And the master plan is comprehensive. So it pulls in the 5-year recreational plan, it pulls in some of the elements of the downtown plan, it pulls in our 2019 energy plan. It really does try to strives to be a comprehensive document, and hopefully you'll see that reflected here as we go through our resource allocation process. So hopefully you guys are able to see it. I know whoa, that's too much. Let's see if we can tailor accordingly here to the size of the screen that we have. All right. So we'll go over first. Our first group is our recreation group, and you see they have as they've done in the years past. They go park by park. It's really the cleanest and easiest way to move through this process, to break out these things. Instead of having one big engineering budget, we actually break it out so that people know whether it's this body, whether it's our public at large, whether it's anyone that picks up the plan, they know exactly which park is slated to get some benefits. So you'll see for the first time in several years, we actually don't have anything in Merchants, now Oxford Park. So we actually last year got to cut a ribbon, got to combine those two parks. So Merchants Park is, we've put that particular name to bed, and now we will operate everything under Oxford. So it's our open space there. So this year, moving forward, and when we come back before you, you'll see that consolidated, but it's here for clarity purposes now. Finishing out some of the work that we started last year, some of the outstanding work for Merchants Park. It looks gorgeous. It's functioning well. It was incredibly popular last year. We look to build on that momentum and add the planned walking trails, as well as you can see here, nothing happens without some engineering. But so our plan is to have trails that go around the outside. So as little Jimmy or Billy or Rhonda are out there playing in the park, our parents have something to do. They can stay active, stay mobile. They can have a walking trail around the whole of the park, which we're excited about. Moving forward into the year after, we're still planning for additional parking in that space. If you can kind of picture Merchants Park, you'll know that we've got an opportunity on the north end to add some parking to it. We've got an area, some potential in the south to expand the existing parking that's already there as well. Those are our two areas where we think we can do some of the best good there. Make sure that as much as possible that those that are visiting via their vehicles have a place to put those vehicles that doesn't end up interfering with our residents that live around our great park. Also exciting is the chance to add a pavilion to there. As you know, we've got a pavilion in JC Park, and it's rentable. Anybody that wants to throw their birthday party or anything like that there, they have the opportunity to have a little bit of coverage. We want to add that same functionality to Oxford Park as well, so that people can have a little bit of shelter from the sun, have the birthday cake, the anniversary cake, the wedding, whatever it happens to be, but it gives an opportunity to rent that space and have a central point to gather for whatever your party happens to be. And at that point, you'll see from 25 on, we'll consider Oxford Park to finally be a finished product, which we're really excited about. Took many years to get to that point, but now, of course, we can finally say it's done, come one, come all, and some great things to be found there. All right, next up, Angel Park. If you remember from last year, the only thing we had on here was some fencing. That process is ongoing right now. We actually just went out to bid for fencing. Angel Park now won't need anything until about 2 years from now, in the 24-25 budget year, in which we'll be adding some refurbishing tennis courts there. So these won't be new tennis courts, but this gives you a sense of the kind of things that are found on the CIP. Just refurbishing those is the kind of thing that comes out of this one. Not cheap, $100,000, but we know that they're very popular. Anybody that lives around there or picks up their kids at Angel Park knows it's the first nice day of the year. You got people out there. There are lessons being taught out there. There are people out there for fun. There are kids just throwing tennis balls as hard as they can at each other. But whatever it is, we want the surface to be ready to go and able to be played on. Tot Lot, again, last year you would have seen a lot of stuff on there for this particular budget year, but now we've gotten to the point where this is nearing to be a finished product as well. Our recreation department added some fabulous new play equipment there, and right now we're actually heading out to bid for a new trail through there, which is paid for through our community development block grants, which will increase the accessibility of that park. So removing any architectural barriers that you find there now. But after that, this is another one that, because of the feedback and because of the 5-year recreation master plan, we are now considering that to be a finished product. We've met the community's expectation. We've offered up what was asked of us through that plan, and we're very proud to call that a completed project as well. Next up, Lazenby. Lazenby, again, not a lot of change. If anybody can picture Lazenby, it shares space with Rogers Elementary. The portion of it that's that's owned by the city is really just the baseball field there. So it's a kickball field, it's a softball field. It's kind of where we house a lot of our adult recreation. So there's not a lot there. It's kind of a single purpose park for us. But we do feel that on occasion the ball field surface, the infield needs to be redone, readdressed on occasion. So that is the only thing that you'll see on the Lazenby field for the upcoming years. Oxford Towers, now known as Friends Park. It was renamed last year in honor of the Friends of the Berkley Parks and Recreation Group, which has raised a fantastic amount of money and has really adopted that park, made it their own, has put their own hands into the soil there to make some improvements. We do see that is a great opportunity to add some adult exercise equipment there. So it's, you can picture this is not just bigger monkey bars, it's actually exercise equipment that'll be permanently installed there. That if somebody's on a walk or something like that, they go there, they're able to exercise on a circuit throughout there. Last year, you would have seen, again, a refurbishing of tennis courts. It's another project that we'll have finished by the end of this particular budget year. You'll see actually new pickleball courts there. That was, again, in response to communities' request and desire to have a variety of different recreation opportunities. We formerly had tennis courts there. They were only about moderately used compared to a lot of our other courts. So this ended up being the perfect opportunity to add something new for our seniors, for our residents in general, for any pickleball enthusiast out there. This should be a spring-summer project, but it should be done by the end of this year. So for those that love pickleball, Friends Park is going to be your brand new favorite destination. JC Park is a large emphasis area for us this year. It's one of the last of our really big project spaces. JC Park, for anybody that's not familiar with it, we actually have a campaign going right now called If We Build It, They Will Play, in which we are working to raise funds to get a match from the MEDC. If we can hit the $50,000 mark in community crowdsource and funding, MEDC will match that $50,000. But we have to get to that point. So again, we've got, I think, about 40 to 50 more days to hit that mark. But so if anybody that's listening here, or anybody that's interested in putting their dollars into the future of Berkley Parks, this is a great opportunity because you have the potential of getting that matched dollar for dollar of the MEDC. Whatever gets us that $50,000 mark, it's incredibly important that we get to that mark. If we raise, $49,999, unfortunately, we won't be able to receive that match. So $50,000 is our golden number here. It's incredibly important for sure. In addition to what we're planning for the MEDC, as you see, we also have significant contributions going to that park. This will be now our second largest park now that Merchants and Oxford have merged into Oxford Park. So there's a lot to be done there. New play equipment, as you'll see on here. Let me go item by item so I can get lost in here. Inclusive playground surface, which is already something that we want to have anyway. It's been a goal of our parks to be as inclusive as possible. We want everyone to play, no matter where somebody falls on a mobility or neurocognitive spectrum. We want them to have a place and feel like this is their park and this is their home. So we're coming to the table with a significant amount of resources here. Again, we're hoping the community and we're hoping the MEDC meets us where we are. And then moving down here to the second item for this particular budget year, ADA pass. Those that can picture the park there, there's a path that runs along the outside of it. It's showing its age. It's like much of our sidewalks. It needs constant maintenance. And so the opportunity to install ADA pass is important and is exciting and is, again, fulfilling the desires of the community. And this is responding to the voice of the people in form of the master plan as well as the 5-year recreation plan. We don't, again, like I said, we don't do anything without engineering. This being a significant amount, we make sure that we are also adding this to the CIP as well, so that that does not go unaccounted for. Switching to next year, almost all of our plans are multi-year plans here. You'll see that Pavilion Restoration is here. One of the most exciting things coming into this park for anybody that has had to pick their kids up and run them home quickly is that the bathrooms. We're finally getting bathrooms for JC Park, so we'll be able to utilize that facility on site without having to worry about going, figuring out who your next closest neighbor or your next closest friend is to that park. We have porta-johns there now. They come with all the cons of having porta-johns there. They're difficult to clean. They're not sturdy. I probably don't need to go into detail about how much porta-johns have the downside of porta-johns, but will be a thing of the past. We've had great success with the bathrooms that were installed at Oxford Park this year, and all the things that we had heard about initially, them not being clean, them not being safe, them not being locked. We were able to address each one of those and did not have any issues with them this year. They're cleaned right along with all of our buildings under the same contract. We're working on getting cameras for that now, and our automatic locking system worked like a charm all last year. So we actually had people go over and we actually had to check them, just not just trusting it, but spot checking it. They passed with flying colors every time. So we were very happy. We did not see any issues there at all. And then by the time we get to the 23-24 year, we'll have 2 years under our belt of hopefully rousing success with Oxford bathrooms, and we'll be able to continue that success right into JC as well. And then $75,000 for engineering. At that point, we will proudly call JC Park a finished product as well. It'll be a fantastic neighborhood gem for the north side. It gets a ton of use for a lot of different reasons, and it's going to continue to be a multi-use space well into the future because of the investments that we're planning for the next 2 years here. Community Park, formerly known as Blue Park, now it's affectionately known as Green Park. As you know, anybody that's visited that knows that we made some significant investments in play equipment this year as well. So that is newly installed. It went in at the end of December there. My family and I were able to ride bikes up there this weekend. It was just packed with kids of all ages. So again, very successful, but that's one of the reasons why you don't see anything for the next 2 years. But drainage is definitely an issue at that park, and we want to invest in some solutions for that as well. So you'll see drainage, landscaping, and ADA paths are all on the horizon for the 24-25 budget year. Anyone that can picture it knows there's there are asphalt pathways sort of narrowing over time as the edges kind of fall away a little bit. Before these get to a point where they're untenable, we want to make sure that we're updating them and making sure that they accommodate persons of all mobility types. So that really largely ends I'm sorry, let me go back down to lighting. Lights in the tennis court. This happens every couple of years. This year, so we're looking at LEDs. So we continue, again, pulling in the energy plan that was adopted by council in 2019. Pulling in that emphasis to go as energy efficient as possible. There's fantastic strides with LED lighting, and we're going to hopefully over time convert all of our stadium lighting, our park lighting, and our baseball lighting and tennis lighting to a complete LED offering. And then tennis courts. People kind of don't think about the tennis courts there at next to Anderson School as being part of Community Park. But we kind of consider it all to be one campus, and we've got resurfacing coming up as well here. I'm sorry, gate repairs. So that kind of takes us through a lot of our parks. The community center itself, obviously we've been having, I think we're going on about a 25-year conversation at this point about the need for a new community center, the offerings that we want to see in it, the best way to give that offering to the community at large. That's largely not captured here. It kind of has an uncertain future. Nothing has risen to the level of being considered to be a plan just yet. But otherwise, you'll see there's not a ton of investment other than parking lot lighting and some repairing south wall separation. If you can picture the building there, that south wall periodically needs to be shored up. The ground that it was built on is not holding up. The foundations are slowly sinking, and because of that, we've got some slippage in that south wall there that needs to be shored up on occasion. Frankly, we've been just doing spot repairs as needed because ultimately the dream is to have a new and improved building. And so having a $35,000 repair on the south wall, hopefully with a whole new building on the horizon, hasn't made a ton of sense for us, but we continue to make sure it's in the plan so that we never lose sight of the fact that it's out there and it will need to be addressed.
Matt,
Sir?
are there any temporary plans for the ice arena portion of the property?
There are,
Just temporary.
some temporary plans, yeah. There's been a lot of requests from the local sporting groups, Sox, Dad's Club, there's been I think Steelers even. Everyone kind of wants to have an opportunity to get that flattened out and have it be a multi-use space that kids could practice various sports on.
Okay.
I think that's largely going to be our emphasis area. It would make a good soccer field, something that we don't largely have in the community. Even, Sox itself started as, Berkley Youth Soccer Association, but they currently don't have a home field here provided by the city. Their older kids play at Hurley. They do a fantastic job. It's been a very successful club under the DCFC moniker. But for the rec level, the city has not been able to offer up a soccer field, so it's certainly an option for that space.
Thank you.
And then Pettingill is the city maintains the ball fields and the surface there as well. We don't own the property, but we do have an operating agreement with the with schools, and we periodically have to do ball field resurfacing there. We were able to do it, I think, 2 years ago. It's not slated for, I think, another 10, or it's a 10-year cycle on it, so it falls just outside of the scope of this plan here. And then, as you'll note, in the other category, there's some things that have been long-standing conversations, light pole replacements at most of our fields. We keep an amount there every year. We have our light poles themselves holding up those big, giant racks. We have them periodically audited and looked at by structural engineers. On occasion, we have to swap those out as they age. So we keep an amount there as a standing item. So each year, you'll see that $25,000 there. It'll be always in the next year. So we forever allot for that as we needed. And then fencing, again, is another thing. Fences rust, they age. So again, we'll need to address some fencing at community fields as well. We've been working with a lot of the youth sporting clubs and as well as the school district for their varsity and junior varsity softball teams. We're working on right now a plan to create a new home field at Community 2 and Community 3 that will better accommodate those groups, make sure varsity softball, who's been fantastic, they've won district championships, they've had nothing but success in the last several years, make sure that they've got a true home field that they can be proud of and they can show off to any and all who come and lose to them eventually. And last but not least, again, adult exercise equipment. You saw it in Friends Park. We believe this is going to be a rousing success, so we're planning a separate installation as well. The park itself is to be determined. But again, we know it's going to be in the next, in the course of this plan here in the next 6 to 7 years. So we want to make sure it's accounted for somewhere. As these conversations progress, you'll see that line item move and be properly located in its future home park. But right now it is in the TBD category. Any questions on rec? How are we doing? Are we hitting some of the goals that has been, part and parcel of the conversation that this group had as they developed the master plan?
You have a line item here for development of Dorothea Pocket Park. Can you touch on that for us?
Sure. So one of the things that our recreation department has set as a longer term goal is to have a presence in our downtown, our central business district, our downtown area. Dorothea, the short stub between Coolidge and the parking space that kind of abuts the school's property there, seems like the perfect location for that. And so we've been excited about it. It's been a fun conversation to have. There, again, nothing has risen to the level of plan yet. The DDA has jointly worked with the recreation department, and they want to get together on something. but neither one of them have resources right now to commit to it, and it's just not been an emphasis area for us as of yet. Yeah, but again, you see it here because we don't ever want it to fall off of the radar completely. Okay, all right. We'll take a journey now to the wonderful world of the library. All right, so our library is not our newest building, but it is the most recent one to get a complete renovation. So that was in the I think the mid to late 90s. Some of the items that were installed during that period are starting to, we see the end of their useful life. The biggest one that's most near term is the HVAC system. It needs to be completely overhauled. Again, it was installed in 1998, so it's truly showing the end of its useful life. Part of our plan for all of our HVAC installations and swap outs per the 2019 energy plan is we would, in advance of installing newer, more energy efficient machinery, make a calculation on what the annual savings would look like, take those savings, pull them just out of the operational costs into a dedicated fund, and start to use the monies developed there to then fund additional energy efficiency projects. So we would have a revolving loan with the dedicated purpose of making sure that we use less and less energy over time. And we'll be able to use that on any of our city buildings. As this funds new projects, those will undergo the same process. Those will have a calculation involved, whether it's an LED light conversion, whether it's demand signalization. No matter what it is, we'll make sure that we'll know ahead of time what those costs are, and those will then be dumped into that plan. So over time, we really have the opportunity to build a significant fund for reinvestment into our municipal buildings, and we have the opportunity to really lower our costs here, which going all the way back to some of the planning that we've done since 2014 or 2015, we know that a lot of our buildings are they're energy hogs. They use far more than they should for their footprint. We've been slowly chipping away at that, but this will give us a truly dedicated fund, and we're very excited about the potential for that. This is also an area where we've been pursuing state grants. The state has an allotment of federal funds from the ARPA legislation that they are working to allocate right now through their appropriations process. We've made a request for the library, for this building, for public safety, as well as the Public Works, I think it was the last one, to try to fund these projects. If we get all those done at once, that would really help us take a giant step forward in the development of our energy revolving loan fund, and it would give those monies a whole second and third life. It would not just be one and done projects. So,
Matt, is that a request that the legislature is involved with, or
Yes.
is that just a request to the agency?
No, we've submitted to state senators or some of our state reps, as well as a U.S. rep as well. So we were hoping it's either a state or federal appropriation for that.
Okay.
Yeah, but the groundwork has been done as well. It says grants come up that are appropriate to this purpose. We've got a ready-made package to tailor to any grant that seems to fit that ultimate goal. Yeah, it's probably a good time to mention that again, because of the 2019 energy plan, one of the goals was not only to create this revolving loan fund, but to also fund a facilities manager who also serves as the city's sustainability coordinator. We were able to fill that position in November of this year, so the city now has a dedicated professional who makes sure that these projects go smoothly, who makes sure that we're coordinating with preventative maintenance, who sometimes gets down there and turns a wrench on his own. But that's something that the city has not done up to last year. We've largely asked our department directors to double as their own general contractors when it comes to their buildings, which is a lot if you think about it. Not only is Matt Church a fantastic library director, but he was also a general contractor sometimes as well, or at least a managing GC. No, but those times have come to pass. So we've got somebody to better help us gauge these issues and flesh these projects out. So he's going to be crucial to some of these HVAC projects that we have coming up. So that's the most pressing need that we have. As you see, $330,000. It's not a cheap need for us, but it's certainly vital to the comfort of any and all that work or visit our library. For the next year, we've set our sights on recarpeting the library. Again, periodically needs to be done. There's nothing flashy about that. It's just something that keeps the building looking nice and making sure that all that visit it know that it is a place that they want to be. Underneath that, individualized study rooms has really become something that we're getting a lot of requests for. As you can imagine, what the last 2 years have given us, there's still some ongoing consternation about sort of being in a wide open space. So these individual study rooms not only would be good for students that come here and study, but it'll also be good for peace of mind for anybody that maybe doesn't want to feel like they're crammed into a large space together. Matt Church was well ahead of the curve. He started planning for these about 5 years ago, not knowing that the world would hit pause for a while, but just knowing that this is something that was increasingly becoming a demand on the library, and it was the kind of thing that patrons were looking for. Next up, we've got a couple items that are highlighted in yellow. Those are points that are still ongoing conversations. We know that need to be done, but the dollar amount is perhaps a little bit in flux. So I don't spend too much on there other than to point out that these are preventative maintenance items. We want to make sure that the library continues to be a jewel in our community and never looks like a kind of place that has not received resources or attention in far too long. All right. Okay. Municipal building, this is kind of a catch-all for us. It's not just specific to the building that we're sitting in now, but we put a lot of citywide projects in there as well. As you can see, wayfinding was something that happening all over the city. That ends up in here. We, like the library, need an update to our HVAC system. I don't know about you, but I'm getting a little toasty myself just right now. This room has had a difficult relationship with temperature control over time, and that is, you find that throughout our entire building. We also have, not specific to this building, but if you can picture Cummings, it's a street in between Cummings and Thomas there. We now have purchased a home. You've got a collection of privately owned individual parking spaces that if you were to take them all together, you could end up having 40 to 50 spaces there. But right now, the way that they're laid out, I think we may have a dozen at the most. But adding this has the potential to be a real economic development boom for the West 12 area, as this body is aware of more than probably anybody else. Parking comes at a premium in almost all of our places. Adding spots like this allow potential developers to maximize the parcel that they have so that they don't have to shrink their building, shrink the scope of a project in order to make sure that cars are also accommodated there. They can make use of publicly provided parking. Again, another one of our goals that came out of the downtown master plan, as well as the community's master plan as well, which is to create opportunities like that to maximize parking, to make sure that vehicles don't find themselves in the neighborhoods when they shouldn't. So you see we've got that. One thing that we're also very excited about, this is a planning process that won't happen necessarily at this building, but it'll be throughout, is we're finally catching up to the point that many of our other surrounding communities have in installing EV charging stations. As you know, anybody that follows the news, the automotive news, all of the automotive makers are really throwing a lot of resources in this direction. It's going to largely fall on local governments to make sure that the infrastructure to charge those vehicles is in place. The state is coming around to this as well, but they're well behind, unfortunately, some of the private utilities like DTE and others across the state. So we're catching up. We have the opportunity to start to implement these all around our downtown area, our city buildings, parks, you name it. Right now we're looking at several different options here. And last but not least, the energy revolving loan that I mentioned, we are seeking grants for seed monies for that as well. If the city doesn't find grants, then council is going to be asked to dedicate our seed money for this as well to get this project started. Any questions on municipal/citywide items?
I have 2 questions.
Yes,
Matt.
please.
First, the EV charging, and you might not know the answer to this yet, but is the city going to be looking to go through a third-party app to be reimbursed for the electrical cost for that?
That is the conversation right now. We're going back and forth on whether or not we'll be charging for those. As you know, the city has a longstanding ordinance prohibiting charging for parking spaces. Whether or not we're charging for the parking or the electricity that you get while parking there is actually an ongoing conversation right now. But we do anticipate going through a third party on it.
And then you might have touched on this, and I might have been looking at something else and not heard, but the city hall reconfiguration. I know a couple years ago there was something on the ballot to look at getting a new city hall that obviously didn't pass. So is the idea that we're going to continue to keep this building for the foreseeable future? I know it has a lot of issues.
Yeah, I do think this is our home for the foreseeable future. Yeah.
Okay.
We've talked several different options, but largely I think most things point towards we're going to love the home we have. And
So the reconfiguration, would that be a pretty substantial reconfiguration then?
yes, one of the biggest part of it would be creating a second life for the former court space. That is, it's now largely we're just storage space right now, but it's a significant part of our building and it's unused. We're in the process right now of making some minor changes, swapping the locations of some of our departments, but the biggest thing that people will notice would be hopefully new cladding around the exterior, so the moldy banana look kind of goes away.
Great.
And then we've got actual life and activity in the court space that would allow some of our departments that need it to expand out, provide space for the community. There's a number of different things that holes that we have right now that could be filled by rebuilding or rehabbing the former court space.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. All right. As said, Public Works, again, I'll have a more robust offering for you in April, but that staff there, they manage 5 different accounts. They manage the general fund, the water fund, the sewer fund, the major road fund, water and sewer fund, major, local, and sanitation. So they, every year, have the biggest lift of any department because of how intricate their budgets are, and the scope and the breadth of what they do for our community is large. So try as they might, I think Derek is probably where Derek Schuler, our DPW director. I don't know where he is in the world right now, but I'm guessing he's in front of a computer hurriedly typing in numbers to a spreadsheet somewhere. I know he's working on it, but unfortunately we don't have it for you this evening. I apologize for that. All right, I'm going to go through public safety. Again, for those that have been following our public safety department, you know much of their significant investment is largely behind us. We received a new fire truck. We have a new building. They've received a couple of building improvements, but they have the same issue as many of us have, is that they really need a new HVAC system. So you'll see that as one of the largest numbers in there. We hope 315 will do it. One of the things that we're most excited about this project is not only do we have the opportunity to alter the ductwork to make their basement area more viable as a good space, but they have a boiler system for heat right now. It's something that like 63% efficient because of the age of it. Any system that we put in now is going to be 95 plus from an energy efficient standpoint. So they really have the opportunity to take a massive leap forward in energy efficiency, ultimately lowering the cost of utilities and their operational costs, which they will turn right into life-saving offerings for our community. In addition to that, a couple of security updates as well. They're going to a card system for all their doors. Right now they've got a keypad punch that they use. Again, system works well, but it's aging, and before we get to the point where no one can get in the building, we want to be preemptive and go to something a little bit more secure, something that can track entry and exit based on an individualized card. And for this, next up, door control systems kind of come in the same as the scan. We've got some electrical infrastructure. We've got new radio systems as part of a county-wide effort to get everybody onto the same system. A radio system, so we have interoperability and continuity in communications. Those things are upcoming as well. And then our basement area, once we get the HVAC system, once we get a better fresh air return for the basement, we can have a more robust occupancy down there. And some of the things that we need that we provide for in other parts of the building can be moved to there. You know, fitness space for our officers. We've got a gun range down there. We need some record space as well. All those things that right now just the HVAC system, the built environment down there does not allow for. So, and then you'll see next year again some updated for carports. And then this is another one of those things where we can sort of proudly sit back and say, look what we've been able to accomplish with no other significant projects planned for that space for at least the 5 or 6 years thereafter. So again, our public safety department does an incredible job. One of the things that people tout in our community, of course, is the level of safety we provide, and it's not by accident. We've invested in that department significantly over the last couple of years, not only in the level of personnel that we have, which is phenomenal, but also the environment we ask them to work in. Last thing, I promise, I feel like a collective sigh of relief back there. Our Downtown Development Authority also submits. Again, they now have a downtown master plan, which is going to be an appendix to our community master plan when it's finally get some needed updates to it. But at least the plan has been set. So they started to implement some of the capital guidance that was outlined in that document. So you'll see that they've also got keeping up on the wayfinding, making sure we never get to the point where we've got faded, rusted signs again. And then also the biggest thing that we're probably most excited about was some of the streetscape elements that'll be added. You'll already see new benches out throughout our downtown area. Brand new, non-metal. We don't have to worry about salt and erosion. Those have already come out there. Some streetscape elements like trash cans. Some of the stuff you don't think of until you need it, and then you're very glad that it's there. But otherwise are just part of keeping a clean, well-maintained, well-presented downtown space. And that's one of the things that the DDA is really keeping front of mind now. And then last but not least, some finishing up on the DDA's the joint project between the community, or the city, the DDA, and the school district for the plaza. You'll find just south of Coolidge, or I'm sorry, just south of Catalpa on Coolidge. Anybody that's been by there knows it's absolutely beautiful. We're rounding out some statues. We've got a fence portion that's on back order. We've been waiting for quite a while on the fence. And then we've got a local artist as well that's going to dedicate a statue to that space as well to really to finish it off. So. And then we can consider that yet again, yet another beautiful finished product added to our community, which will be a nice benefit. So, drawing your attention now to the bottom line here, you'll see sort of the running total that we keep each year. Keeping a fantastic community is not inexpensive, but these investments are worthwhile because it's again the reason that our community sees success is through great planning and great investments. That's what this document does for us. And again, this allows us to plan around needed projects. So thank you for the opportunity. I hope I didn't go too long, but I know that you guys have a great interest in these things. And I'm excited to be able to tie it to some of the community's plans. And again, a lot of this goals and visions would not be possible without the work of this group and the culmination of the master plan. It's incredibly useful on setting us on the course for the next 5 years.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, was there anyone in the audience who wanted to comment on the capital improvement plan? Okay. So let's move on then to some of our site plans for the evening, our sketch plans. So the first of those is PSP 0322 for 1949 12 Mile. This is for Loom. Ms. Mason-Minnick, I don't know if you wanted to introduce it first or you want the applicant to come up.
I would just like to give you some background on process for what's
Yes.
happened before. So the applicant filed a site plan review application on February 2nd, 2022. It was sent for review comments to HRC, your consulting engineers, Carlisle Wortman, and your planning consultants, Department of Public Works, and the fire inspector. All of their reviews were included in the packet. With the exception of the fire inspector, none of the reviewers recommended the site plan for approval as it was submitted. So the zoning and just another clarification, and you have something in your correspondence from the city attorney. There's been a lot of correspondence from the public and questions from planning commissioners about the kinder care that is in the building that's next door, that shares a parking lot with the building where this provisioning center is proposed. And the zoning ordinance and state law requires that marijuana businesses must not be within 1,000 feet of a pre-existing public or private school providing education in kindergarten or any of the grades 1 through 12. So staff and the city attorney researched the Kinder Care Child Center, which is located at 1695 12 Mile, and whether it would qualify as a school under the 1,000-foot separation. Also, we asked the Marijuana Regulatory Board, I think I'm quoting that right, what their interpretation was. And they said that if a preschool only offers through pre-K, it doesn't qualify underneath this. And it's whether it's a pre-existing. So the question was often asked if kinder care would then later want to have kindergarten services. Would this preclude that, or would that say that Loom wasn't, couldn't have their license anymore? That's not the case. It's pre-existing at the time that the license is applied for. And so that was the interpretation. That was what we got back from the city attorney, and also there was the correspondence from the state.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So kinder care, according to them, they do not have a kindergarten.
I talked to the director herself, and at this time they do not offer kindergarten services. They offer pre-K, but not kindergarten services.
Thank you.
When I looked back at the minutes too, when we did their special land use, they came and said they were only going to offer from infant to pre-K, so.
Okay. So is the applicant here this evening?
Kristen?
Yes.
Yes.
I think maybe the public might benefit if you explain what we're doing with
Sure.
this item.
Yes, thank you. That's a good comment. So this is, and before we get to your introduction, this is a sketch plan review. So this is an opportunity for the applicant to come before the Planning Commission and get their initial thoughts on what they think of the plan that's initially being presented. Staff may or may not have provided some review comments in passing, as my understanding. In this particular case, I think this was the one where you guys did have a chance to look at some reviews. It has not been reviewed thoroughly by staff. It's not been completely vetted by staff. It's not here for approval or denial this evening. It is merely here for the applicant to seek our initial take and comments on their proposed site plan. They can take that information. They can take the comments and reviews they received from staff, and they can go back and revise their plan with the hope that when they do bring this forward, if they decide to proceed with any sketch plan, that it comes to the commission, with the commission having already pointed out some things that they might be concerned about or have issues with, and the applicant having already been able to address them, therefore making this whole process more efficient for whatever potential developer may come forward. We would rather you guys have the opportunity to incorporate some of our thoughts and concerns ahead of time rather than spending several meetings going through site plan details. So, if there are any questions, once the applicant has the opportunity to introduce their proposal, I will ask for comments from the audience. And if anyone has any general questions about sketch plans or how the process works at that time, please feel free to come forward.
And I would just add that we have no jurisdiction to deny the use in this particular zoning district. The only thing we can do is pass muster on
Correct.
particulars of this particular plan or any other that might be submitted.
Right. We are looking at this from strictly a site layout perspective. We are not looking at the use.
And we are making no vote tonight.
Correct. No approval, no denial, just comments. So, without further ado, go ahead.
Thanks very much. My name is Chris Enright, architect. I'm representing Loom tonight. Along with me is John Abbo, corporate counsel for Loom, and Michael Dowdell, head of retail operations, and Matt Burberry, head of construction. Also, Monica Dragan is here from SVA Architects. They're the actual architects, design architects of record for the project. We do a lot of work with Loom throughout the state, and so we're here to sort of be an intermediary between the groups and hopefully to answer some questions. Loom Cannabis is the largest adult-use cannabis company in the state of Michigan. We have 31 locations operating currently from Monroe up to Iron Mountain. We have now over 1,000 employees within the chain and the retail operations, as well as the production group. Loom is headquartered, their corporate headquarters are in Troy, and their production and retail production facilities in Everett, which is northwest of Mount Pleasant. We have approximately 250,000 square feet under roof of production facilities for grow, as well as for producing the other materials that are sold at the retail locations. Everything that's produced at that facility is packaged in airtight sealed packages inside of airtight containers, which are then delivered by third-party licensed delivery entities to all of the retail operations. These are small trucks, box trucks, and they're just hand-carted and hand brought into the back of the building and the receiving areas for the retail sales. In addition to the 31 locations we have open right now, we have planned at least 10 are either under construction or approved for construction, so we're growing rapidly in the state, and we look forward to being here in Berkley. The project that we are presenting tonight is 1949 12 Mile Road. And again, we appreciate the opportunity for doing this. We do this a lot throughout the state, and we do like to get as many comments as we can from the community, from staff, from whomever, to make sure that whatever we're proposing meets the standards in any of our communities. We consider ourselves to be great neighbors, and we look forward to being a great neighbor here in Berkley. The building that we're proposing to occupy is a current two-story medical office building on 12 Mile, just across the street from Rose Park Cemetery, between Coolidge and Woodward. So it's between the American Legion facility and the facility or the medical building, office building, just to the east of us. So we share the parking on both sides, both the east side and the west side of our facility. We have reciprocal parking agreements with both the building to the east as well as to the American Legion. There are approximately 64, 65 spaces on the west side of the building that we have the ability to park in those spaces, and there's over 200 some spaces on the east side, which we share with the medical facility. So we don't expect parking to be any issue of any kind at this particular location. The interior and the exterior of the building will be significantly improved to accommodate our use. Currently, the existing tenant is Beaumont, which I'm sure anyone who's passed by the building is quite familiar with. Their sign is prominent out front. We anticipate they will be the tenant on the first floor and retain that tenancy. The second story of the facility, which we will be occupying, is currently vacant, as well as the basement. In order to meet state of Michigan regulations for operating a facility in a shared building such as this, our use will be completely separated from any other tenant in the building, whether it's current or proposed. So as such, part of our proposal is adding at least one stair tower and the elevator to the northwest portion of the building, and then reorganizing the interior on the upper level to accommodate that complete separation. In addition to the interior improvements, not only just for the build out of the upstairs, but the separation on the exterior of the building and the site, will be doing quite a significant amount of work to upgrading the overall facility. The parking lots on both the east and the west side, not the entirety of it, but a significant portion of those parking lots near the building, which we expect to utilize most of the time, will be completely redone, all new landscaping, all new paving, all new curbing, and we'll have a complete underground stormwater detention system along with environmental units to completely clean any of the stormwater that is captured on the site. So starting from the roof and going down, we are proposing to do a green roof on the existing building, as well as having solar panels on the roof. We are also proposing to install wind mills to capture any sort of electric that we can't and put it back into the grid along with the solar panels. All the water that hits the top of that roof will then go through essentially the green roof and then be captured in rain barrels and then put into the underground detention system. So everything pretty much around the perimeter of that building, all the storm water and all the rainwater that falls on that site is going to be collected into that system and eventually find its way into the detention system, which will be cleaned and essentially put back into the combination sewer. We're improving all the landscaping, and we're providing public art and a variety of exterior upgrades to the building that include green walls, which advertise not only Loom's commitment to alternate green sources of construction, as well as the city of Berkeley's commitment to doing so. We have public art in the form of some sculptures on the outside of the building, as well as murals that are planned for a portion of the exterior of the building. We are also proposing benches, public improvements to the sidewalk areas, as well as upgrading the lighting and meeting all the requirements for the photometrics. So as Megan indicated, we have received comments from her company at Carlisle Wortman, as well as from HRC, the engineering consultants, DPW, and the fire department. Fire department has recommended that we, for approval, there are a variety of comments from the remaining three entities that we are addressing, and at this point we are satisfied that we can address every one of those comments and satisfy them for the upcoming, hopefully next month, site plan meeting. With that, with the group that's here, we're happy to entertain any questions that anybody may have about our project.
Thank you. Before we get into the Planning Commission discussion, is there anyone from the audience that wants to comment or has any questions about this project? You can step forward. Okay, state your name and address and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
My name is Bill Sturmate. How many? 3 minutes or less?
3 minutes.
We're limiting it tonight. Okay, yeah. Okay, well, I'm here with Jackie, my wife, I'm resident at 1878 Rosemont. And I think I might have sent you a lot of my documentation, and I really appreciate the opportunity here. I won't go through all the detail on it, but the bottom line of that concern that I quoted in the Mott study that was done for children, and it was a poll. And just to reiterate, because there's some confusion about the difference between a poll and a study. And these polls are empirically done nationwide, where they determine the pulse of the public on certain issues like marijuana dispensaries. And the takeaway here from this study, which I submitted to you all, is the same concern that I and my wife share about the proximity of this dispensary, Loom, to that of children. Now, you eloquently went through the discussion where state law kind of neglects or keeps it silent, unfortunately, about daycare and early learning centers. And I by no means represent Kidner Care. But as a grandfather, I've raised 2 children myself, I'm deeply concerned about the children at Kinder Care. And I think as all residents, we should be concerned as well. That's why I voiced my objection, which I did last evening, to the Loom dispensary located almost south of actually due east of my house by about 300 feet. I see the children down there. I see the parents dropping the kids off. This is a concern, and I know it does not meet the requirements of state law. But at Berkeley, we owe our kids better. We just watch presentations about what we're going to do for our children, all the great advancements and things we want. We want to attract young families into the community, and I see it as a real obstacle to maintaining a youthful, quality environment, a safe environment for our kids. I think it's really difficult to disagree with that premise, that as a community, the highest standard you can do is for the safety and well-being. And I really encourage the Planning Commission to please look outside the box. I've talked to the city council about this. I'm going to approach our legislature on this. There's a glaring hole in the legislation where a 5-year-old who's in a pre-K program is not important as a 6-year-old in a public school program, public or private. Then I have a series of questions on the walkways that the children have to walk through. Down the street where I live, a lot of children come out of our neighborhood and walk to Shrine. That's my parish I belong to, but it's also a school where my kids went to as well, part of it. I had a son in Berkley schools and a daughter at Shrine. Walking to school is not uncommon. They're going to be exposed to that. And then lastly, my last comment, and I'll leave this one short, is that in the Mott report, that was publicized, it was on CNN, it was on MSNBC, they talked about the parent concern. The number one concern was impaired drivers. They're concerned about impaired drivers. These impaired drivers, and I sent you the article on it, but it's noted that the University of Michigan reported that a full 56% of the participants in this poll, where they did of 760 Michiganders who use medical marijuana, not recreation, I'll preface that, admitted to driving high. Now, they drove high immediately within 2 hours, so we have to say this is the concern. We have a marijuana dispensary, we have children close by. I'm against it, they're too close to my home, and I hope that the City Planning Commission takes these into consideration.
Thank you for your comment. We're going to ask people not to applaud. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this item? Please come forward.
James Campbell, 1591 Catalpa. I understand that this is not a discussion about use, and you can build a nice white picket fence, isolating yourselves from the rest of the government operations, but you are all the same government in my eyes. Berkeley Ordinance 002-22 amended is not the slam dunk. In fact, last night during the second reading, there was actually some trepidation during the vote as to whether this is even going to expand or not to 5 licensees. It probably will. But where we stand today, this applicant is ineligible to occupy the space for the type of business in which they plan to operate. I'd like to put a little bit of context for you, not as the Planning Commission, because I respect the fact that you have to dispassionately and objectively evaluate these site plans, but as citizens of this community, a substantial effect of why this ordinance is even being considered right now. The attorney, a litigator for this company, as a part of public record, during public comments, threatened to sue the city if they did not expand this ordinance. As a citizen, I'm offended by that. And I realize that this is not part of your mission, it's not part of your objectives, but I want you to keep that in mind as you're evaluating this particular business. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Okay, then we will, yes, sir.
I'm Larry Fonz. I live at 1908 Rosemont, so the building is right behind my house. And I have 6 grandkids, and they'll be over all summer, and I don't want them exposed to marijuana. The smell just drives me crazy. It's so much worse than it ever was. So I'm against it. That's all I had.
Thank you. Okay. So with that, I will move on from the public comment on this particular item. We did get some information that was provided in our packet from the first speaker, so thank you for that. We do have all of that included. Was there any additional emails that we received?
Yes, they were on your table. I believe that was the first speaker, where there was the Mott study that was
Yes.
attached.
And then the communication from the city attorney as well.
The communication from the city attorney as well.
Okay.
The other communication about marijuana provisioning centers really applies to better provisioning, which was on the docket last time. And so I put that at your table and also placed that correspondence in the folder.
Okay. All right, so then we will move on to the larger commission. I have one question for the applicant based on the audience comments. If you could come up, thanks. So one of the things that was brought up is the idea of odors associated with the use. I know you mentioned airtight containers several times. Can you expound a little bit on that and what one would expect to smell or not smell outside of the facility? I think that's a very valid question.
Sure, that's a great question. It's a common question. It's a question I had. I don't actually really use marijuana products, but I assumed the same thing. I've smelled it before. We've all smelled it. And what we typically smell out there randomly are from the grow facilities. Whereas the retail side of things, everything is packaged and nothing that we sell in these retail operations is ever open to the air. So there's no marijuana product that ever is open to the air in any way inside the facility. We don't produce anything. We don't process anything inside the facilities. It's all done, as I indicated, at the facility in Everett. So if any of you have been to these locations or visited them, as a lot of planning commission members do, and we're happy to take you through any of these, any one of our locations, as we commonly do, that's one of the main surprising things that people react to, is that there is really no odor of any kind in the retail facilities because, again, nothing is open to the air. And even still, as we do here in each of these other locations, we have carbon filters and HEPA filters in all of the HVAC units, which are typical in just meeting the requirements in most of the municipalities. But these facilities operate mostly like pharmacies, like a CVS or a Walgreens. Everything comes in boxes, packets, and it's put onto a shelf, and then it's purchased, and then it's used off-site. There's no use of any of the products allowed in any way whatsoever on the grounds, whether inside the building or outside the building. We have security guards at most of our locations, depending on the need at each location, to make sure that none of that happens. And we really didn't get too much into the security systems, which we might, but we have multiple cameras throughout all of the buildings that are, whenever possible, keyed into the local police departments, where there are eyes on these facilities all the way around the building and inside the building, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when it comes to odor, those things are easy for me to answer. Other issues about distances and things I really can't get to.
So to make sure I understand correctly, then patrons cannot use your product in the parking lot or on the grounds of the facility.
It's absolutely forbidden, and it's absolutely not allowed whatsoever. We don't have people loitering, using it, or anything whatsoever. It's not allowed.
When we were to consider the site plan, which we're not doing this evening, no approvals, no denials, but would the company be open to having a condition attached that would say that that Loom would be responsible for ensuring the product is not used on their premises?
Well, as I indicated, I have corporate counsel behind me, but without even looking back, I can say yes, because that's part of our Loom policy throughout all the locations whatsoever, and that's part of corporate policy, and it's also to meet state requirements to do that too. We would be, I believe, breaking our licensure if we actually did know that to happen and allow that to happen.
Okay.
So our license would be at risk even beyond the significance of the site plan approval.
Okay.
If I can follow up on that, a lot of the communities do require a statement right on the site plan as part of the site plan approval stating just that you cannot use the product in the building or in the parking lot on the premises.
Okay.
I don't know if Berkley has that as a requirement or not, but
Well, I think it's something that we would certainly want to have, particularly if it's a state requirement. I mean, we might as well have everything on there in one place. Did you have something else to add?
No, it's just that requirement's not in the zoning ordinance.
Okay, so I just wanted to get that on the record to address some of the comments from the public. So thank you for getting to that. And I will now open it up to the entire commission. Public comment is closed. Did you have something that you wanted to add? Yeah, you can come on up and add.
Hi, I'm Chris Clampkin, owner and operator of Butter at 2222 West 11 Mile. They forgot the best part. You guys have nitrogen packaging, so it actually seals the cannabis flower. I heard Butter came up, a question. Am I allowed to ask what you were talking about before?
So I think it was just that we received some comments after the fact, some resident comments, and that those were passed along to the planning commission.
Is that FOIA-able?
It is. If you would like to see those comments, I would contact Ms. Mason-Minnock, and you can get those comments in writing.
Thank you, we will. We'll make the request. And FYI, just another public comment, we got a really great new parking plan coming to you on the 26th, so we'll exceed the requirements as we are, but even more so with a lot more land and a lot more parking for you.
Okay, so thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the full planning commission discussion. I think I want to try to keep this somewhat orderly, so if it's okay with everyone, I'm going to start with Commissioner Smith and just kind of go down the line since he likes to talk first usually anyways.
Well, I don't like to. I actually like to talk last.
I can start with Commissioner Bartis if you'd prefer.
I'll vote for that.
Okay, we can start at this end.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
Nothing?
Currently.
Okay.
No.
And we can jump back
Yeah.
in, but I just want to get everyone's initial comments first.
I have a fairly specific comment. When looking at the plans, it doesn't show the entire site plan on most of the sheets. So you're showing that you're doing improvements right around the building, but what are you doing with the parking lot on the east side of the building?
So the limits of our construction, if you will, are what's indicated on those portions of the site plan. So beyond those limits of construction, on the civil plans where those heavy dotted lines are, we are not planning on improving those areas beyond that point at this point.
No restriping of the parking lot or anything?
Not at this time, but I mean, I'm sure that that's something that if planning commission wanted to have part of that, you know, at least those spaces that especially impact our building, I'm sure we'd be more than happy to restripe those areas and, you know, maintain them and without, you know, tearing them apart and whatnot, but, you know, make them better, certainly.
Okay.
That was it.
Are you all set?
Yeah, I'm all
Okay.
set.
Kind of my only question until Commissioner Smith goes.
Okay. Commissioner Kempner.
Okay, your wind turbines, how tall are they?
10 feet.
Now, the other thing is I believe you can only have one.
One wind turbine.
One. Our general requirements say roof-mounted on-site consumption. No more than one roof-mounted wind energy system shall be placed on any parcel.
Then one it shall be.
And then my other question is, so I did a field trip to one of these sites, right? And in order to even get into the building, I had to show my ID immediately. This one I have questions because we have a stairwell, right? So can people access the stairwell and go through that lobby and go all the way up before ID is required? Or is there somebody in that main floor lobby?
So before I answer that question, could I ask you a question? The facility you went to, was it a Loom facility or another facility?
It wasn't. It was
Okay,
another
great. Just
facility.
wanted to clarify that. So the main entrance for customers is intended to be that northwest stair tower and elevator lobby. So anybody that would be coming in as a customer would be coming into that entrance and only accessing the Loom space from that northwest corner. We're utilizing the southwest stair tower as an egress path, as a secondary access out of the building. But the primary way for people and customers to get in is that one entranceway at the front. And then once they get upstairs, that's where they're received in that contained space. So instead of being on the main floor, it'd actually be on the second floor.
I think that's all I had for the moment.
Commissioner Dallin?
Yep, I got a couple of things.
So I just pulled up the aerial, looking at the parking lot. It looks like that east parking lot is in pretty rough shape, east of where your limits are currently shown. Be looking to see it resurfaced maybe and restriped or something to that effect. And as far as the treatment, the stormwater treatment, were you treating just the area? I know you have a section of underground on the west side, you have a section of underground on the east side. The east side underground detention, is that taking care of just the disturbed area, or is that taking care in all of the parcel?
It doesn't take care of all of the parcel, if I remember correctly, by looking at the drawing. There is a limits of construction on the east side.
Where the permeable pavers stop?
Right, so everything from that portion over, they're actually on sheet 5, my mind got cut off, but I believe it's 5.2. Yeah, 5.2, in sheet 5.2, there's that heavy dotted line that goes beyond that island before the driveway. That's sort of the encapsulation of the high point, and then you can see the arrows on the right-hand side, that water's going the other way at that location.
Yep, I see that. Would you guys consider, not skipping ahead, I guess, to the parking lot improvements, would you guys consider maybe doing some landscaping or stuff in the area to the east?
So you're talking about beyond the limits of that,
Yeah,
that heavy
yes.
dot? Yeah, I mean, I think along with, kind of taking care of that parking lot and updating the curbing there, that certainly we could throw some landscaping in those islands there to
Okay,
kind of,
okay.
I understand it's a little bit neglected looking at this point.
Yeah, my doctor's office is actually in this facility, so I'm quite, aware of the parking lot is in pretty rough shape. I know one of the comments that Megan had was the parking, showing the parking requirements and stuff. I'd like to see that, see how it actually breaks down into what you guys need with all the tenants, with it all being built out, I should say, because there would be, if I understood the floor plan correctly, there would be, Loom, would it be the only tenant on the second floor?
Correct. So that's an excellent question. It was also brought up in the review, and I know that it's not quite clear. That's kind of why I brought it up in the beginning, because it was a little bit unclear in terms of what was submitted. So yes, that right now, the way the building is set up is that Loom would occupy a portion of the upper floor, and then the rest of it is currently vacant, and then the main floor is strictly the medical use, the medical office for Beaumont, and then there's a lower level which was occupied at one point, but that, I don't believe that they have an idea for a tenant at that particular location. So right now, with the two tenants, with Beaumont and with Loom, just by going through the ordinance and determining, at this point anyway, not officially, but when we submit it on the document showing the breakdown of the parking, that we need approximately 59 spaces for Beaumont, which is 80% of the overall area times, I believe, 200 and some square feet usable. I'm not sure what the number is.
I think
but
I ran the calcs actually.
Okay,
So, office medical in Berkley is 1 space per 100 square feet of usable floor area. So assuming 80% of your gross is
Right.
usable. I assumed the second floor was built out with medical, so that'd be worst case, basically, with Beaumont, and then, Loom, which is, I'm not sure where it was in my calculations, my scribble here. I came in over 100 though, but that's building everything out.
Right, so our calculations were retail on the upper floor, the portion that we're occupying, and then medical office on the first floor. We came up with 59 for Beaumont and 19 for Loom.
Okay.
To meet the ordinance, we ended up with 78.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to see that spelled out, I guess.
Right.
So we could be able to digest it. Your square footages on your gross floor area calcs, I think, might be incorrect. Over on the left side of the cover sheet. You might want to take a peek at those.
We'll make sure that those are spot on.
And I think that is all I had. Oh, one more, actually. Going back to the underground detention. So you guys are looking at infiltration?
Well, yeah, no, it's part of our proposal and it's part of
Okay.
our license
Okay,
requirement.
all right.
So one comment you did make that one of the other commissioners made about the the overall site. It's when I kind of went back through the plans today, I had the same sort of question. It's like, I can see this portion of it, but not, I have to look at the actual survey that shows the breadth and the width of the entire development. So we'll make sure that we include something next time to give everyone a little bit better visual of like how the whole thing operates and the limits of where all of the improvements are relative to the buildings and the parking lot.
That would be perfect.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson?
So along the same line, just so I'm clear, is your reciprocal agreements cover the entire east and west lot, or just a portion of the east and west parking lots?
That's a great question. So there's two separate agreements. One is with American Legion, and the other one is with 1695 12 Mile.
Right.
The 1695 12 Mile is a complete reciprocal easement where it's unlimited. We get to use parking back and forth from both uses unencumbered. The American Legion agreement, and by the way, this is in the packet, the agreement's in the packet, so of our initial submission. But my clarification, I understand the way the American Legion works is that we have spaces that the American Legion can use after 6 p.m. During Monday through or Monday for the whole week.
During
So
Lent,
after-
during Lent especially.
Pardon me?
During Lent.
Right, so now the benefit is that, when American Legion gets busy sometimes on the weekends, when they lease the space out, of course, Beaumont won't be there at all.
Right.
So that kind of offsets everything, so.
Well, just follow up on that. Have you given any thought to, what is your plan to, if you have one, to redirect customer traffic to the Beaumont parking lot when the American Legion is open or is busy? Do you have a plan to do that?
Well, we are essentially planning on operating on the west side of the building. That is sort of the Loom side, and the east side, as you indicate, will be the Beaumont side. So during the weekend, certainly when we expect to have the most traffic, and perhaps during the evening hours, depending on the shift changes, we'll likely have our employees park certainly on the east side, off out of the Beaumont area to, sort of free up that area on the west side. If there's any other, if we find that there are some parking problems, which, a lot of times at these locations, it's kind of dependent on the business that we get at any particular time to find out what's going on. Luckily here, we have the ability to sort of, accommodate all those patrons. But if there's signage in the future that we think that we need, then we might have to do something along those lines.
Okay. And what are your anticipated hours of operation?
They're mandated. I don't want to misspeak.
But I mean, I'm not going to hold you to.
I think they're 10. It's 11 a.m. to 9, I believe, is typically what we do 7 days a week.
Okay. And will the property, aside from security cameras, will the property be patrolled 24/7?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Each of our locations are dependent. Again, it's almost like the parking. This is something I just learned in the last presentation. With 30-some locations and being open for several years now, Loom has never been robbed one time. And that's when we were getting into these projects in the beginning, we were building them like banks and fortresses, assuming the worst. Yeah. And in fact, it hasn't happened yet because the security systems are so advanced and there's so much scrutiny around the property that it's very difficult to essentially get beyond that. But we do have armed security guards at these locations, and if one's determined to be needed here, then we will make sure that individual's here.
Okay, just a couple of other quick things. I second the call for a actual parking plan. I think we do have some material in here about your parking idea, but we need a plan with numbers. And then I didn't see a lighting plan in here either.
Yeah, the lighting plan wasn't included in this package, but we have one prepared, and it does meet the standards for the photometrics. That was one of the conditions, one of the comments from
we'll need to see
planning
that
and
too.
engineering.
All right, that's all I had for now.
Commissioner Smith?
I'll jump right into the parking. American Legion, that whole lot west of you between their building and this building does fill up 100%. Fridays, Saturdays, even not during Lent, but there are occasions where that's full. I think we see a conflict there. There's gonna be some parking issues. I think our ordinance is woefully inadequate for the number of spaces required based on what we heard last month, your project, and the next one on tonight's agenda. The expected traffic, foot traffic, automobile traffic is way more than what the ordinance predicts with its number of cars. So in all three projects, I personally, and I'm sure many other commissioners, see a real parking issue here. And throw on your west side, because your entry is on the west side of the building, of course, as we've been talking.
Northwest corner, correct.
Yeah, throw that into the mix with American Legion and their peak times. That's going to be a problem here. So that's something that needs to be well explained when you come before us
Right,
next month or the month after that. And I know the shared parking agreement, that was my first meeting on this board in 2000. So it did involve all three structures when this building was built. So, okay, all that being said, this is gonna sound random. I'm just gonna go through sheet by sheet. You're putting a lot of money into this building, and that's a good thing for Berkley. So that's a good thing. Finally borrow some space from you, Mike.
Yes. By all means. Good for just anybody.
You make any changes to the site parking? Site lighting,
Yes, it's all gonna be brand new.
the new poles and everything?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because those big double shoe boxes up there.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, let's get to some pertinent drawings here. Is there any work on out on the public sidewalk other than dropping a couple benches and a public art or whatever's going on? I guess you have some planters.
Marty, what sheet are you looking at? Just
Oh,
we're
I'm
just
sorry.
looking
I'm
at
on
the same thing.
L.
Is that okay?
I'm on L 1.0.
Okay.
And this could be with any sheet, this particular item. But I was just asking if you do, the sidewalk's not in horrible shape. There we go. But do you propose any work in the right-of-way other than, not on the public, other than just the benches and these planters and things like that?
Currently, that's what we're showing is the benches and the planters. I mean, if that area between the curb cut in front of the building, if that needs replacement, I mean, we commonly do that.
You may have some utility work out there if I remember, but I don't know.
I don't think we have any utility
You may not.
ourselves for that, but yeah.
Okay. And it's too bad with all this green stuff you're doing to this building, you're cutting down the three nicest trees in the building to build your elevator and vestibule, but that's life.
Irony was not lost on us,
No.
so.
And this is a question I ask when people put live roofs on buildings. 15 to 17 pounds per square foot. Is that dry or wet weight?
That's maximum loading so it would be wet for that unit. So there's two systems that this company provides. One is a retrofit, which is what this is, which is intended for existing buildings, and one is for newer buildings. So this has essentially that loading, as you indicated, as a retrofit system.
I hope somebody does some structural analysis.
We have a structural group on the team currently doing that work.
And may I ask, what keeps these boxes on the roof in the event, in the heavy wind event? These little boxes that you have up there, seem to be several hundred of them.
They're weighted and they're rated and weighted for, wind loads. I don't know what the actual specification for the wind load is, but that's all taken into consideration. The company that's doing this, the Live Roof Company, they've shown us a lot of what their examples around with a lot of they do a lot of medical facilities, a lot of college campuses, things of that nature. It's very impressive installations of what they do, and they've been around for quite a long time.
Okay, because I don't see any We certainly don't want to poke 1,000 holes in the roof, but I don't see any way they're really attached.
It's actually, another thing that we learned from this is that it's installed by a roofing companies. So roofing companies actually install this product as part of the roofing installation. So the warranties and everything that's related to it is under the roofing warranty. It's actually not done by the third party.
Okay. When you come back, show the wind turbines to scale. These things look like they're
Yeah, we actually, the
about
submitted,
27 feet tall.
I know, the submitted drawings in the PowerPoint actually show it at the 10-foot high
Okay.
height. So yes, that's true. They're
Okay,
way out of
because
scale.
I happened to have these open this weekend, and some people saw them, and there were some chuckles and four-letter words about them. And
Well, the next slide, that's the one that's incorrect. The next slide, those are 10-foot high.
okay, they're still substantial, but okay.
But
And
there's
I-
only gonna be one of them now, so.
If that's, I didn't check the ordinance for the numbers, and I don't know what wind system means, but that could very well be. You know, the sign is a separate permit.
Yes, sir.
You're adding a reclaimed wood over the existing brick veneer. What is that reclaimed wood? Is there gonna be a grid system?
No, it's just an aesthetic that goes on the exterior of the building. It's just reclaimed wood.
Is it on a stud system, backup system, or is it
It would
screwed
be
into
on
the
some
brick?
sort of a sleeper type system that would be secured to the, to the brick.
Have you had good luck with that, holding up over time?
I have, yes, absolutely. If you flash the top correctly and make sure that, as it comes down over the top, that, yeah, it's absolutely,
It's not watertight, it's a rain screen or whatever, just,
it's not a rain screen, no.
or it's not a rain screen, okay.
Right.
Okay. And these growy things, these vertical growy things, what the heck are those?
That's our green wall system that we refer to as growy things in the outside of the wall, as a coincidence would have it. I don't know, can you speak to that more, Monica? I'm not a landscape person. I'm not exactly sure with it. We did a brewery one time where we had hops growing up the wall, which is pretty cool, but I don't know what
Hops
this
like to
stuff
grow
is.
up, yeah.
Yes, they do.
They do that.
So I'm not sure what that actual product is that's on the wall, but it's gonna be green and alive.
Says a stainless steel cable system,
Correct.
okay.
It's actually, thank you, Chris. Sure. It's actually a trellis system. Plants are in planters at the bottom of the building. That's where they grow. Actually, the same company, Green Roof, can facilitate our communication with the vendor for this specific system. And it's actually a stainless steel cable system that
See that,
gets
yeah.
attached to the top of the building, and the plants are just growing just like ivy, except that we are helping them on this stainless steel system.
Okay, and you're not worried about that ivy or whatever it is attacking the wood behind it? We refer to ivy as brick eaters, so in the architectural world, as you are, you're not worried about that it degrading the wood quicker than you would expect?
No, we're gonna work, I'm not a landscape architect either, but in our conversations with the vendors, they're gonna provide the plans that are suitable for our product, for our backup.
Okay,
And we're gonna provide more information if that's necessary for the meeting.
well, obviously you're dumping a lot of money into this building, that's the wrong word, dumping, but putting a lot of money into this building, I just hate to see, and you wanna see it maintained, just hate to see plants, attack a wood system on the exterior of a building. That's like two strikes right there, but,
We will definitely have a full planting list for our final.
okay. And I'm no plant expert, so. So my biggest question here, and one more question, where are the deliveries coming from? There's a lot of delivery traffic. We know a little bit about these facilities.
Right, so right now, the deliveries at this point are planned for the southwest tower. So
Okay.
the secondary tile, that is going to be exclusively used for Loom employees and access to the building. So all the customers are in the front, all the employees go to the back for deliveries.
Okay. Now that gets you to the fulfillment room very quickly. You have a secure door there.
Right.
Corridor B. Okay, your fulfillment room, I suppose, is a secure space.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Okay. But yeah, you know, again, we're here only to talk about the site plan. You know, whether this
Understood.
is right for Berkley or not isn't part of our preview, and that's been explained. We explained that last month. And my biggest question is the parking. I see some issues with parking on this site like the others. So, but anyway, you know, thank you for investing in this building. That's the stretch of 12 miles, not the prettiest portion of our town. So it's good to see some life in this building, should this come to pass.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we know that the marijuana and the cannabis passage here in Berkeley is an important thing, and we want to make sure, as you know, ambassadors to it, if you will, that it's the right thing and it's putting the best foot forward. So we want to do that here. So thank you for your comments.
And you're apparently going to have lots of competition, so.
So
Nature of the beast.
before you wrap up, I had a few comments too.
Sure.
As well when you're done.
You had one other one?
Yeah.
Okay. So to kind of emphasize the parking issue a little bit, you, as you've said, have the benefit of having experience with a lot of different Loom facilities all throughout the metro area, I'm assuming. So if there is a way that you can grab some typical parking counts from your existing facilities, I think that would be very helpful. I would also, just as Commissioner Dallin said, want to see the parking plan or numbers for this entire site. I don't want to put us in a corner where we can't use a portion of this building because of parking concerns. I would be interested to know from staff's perspective if the American Legion has the spaces to give in terms of sharing for parking calculations. And then just two other general comments. I love your rendering. It looks really nice. Can you please make sure that the wind turbine is included on it? I don't know if it's on that street view perspective. And then also, I would be interested to know, so it looks like you're rebranding this building, which is great. I mean, it could use a little bit of rebranding, I think. But I'd be interested to know how the Beaumont signage or where that fits into this whole rebranding concept. So if you could include that on the rendering as well. And then lastly, just a general question, rain barrels. So you have rain barrels on your site. What are you using that rainwater for?
It's a way of collecting it before it goes into the detention system. So instead of just dumping it into the, going out right off the roof, it's a way of basically detaining it before it goes into a detention system. So it's pre-detaining it to go into a detention system.
So you're not using that water to recycle or use it for any other use. It would just be a way of slowing down.
Correct. At this time, correct.
Okay. That was all I had. Commissioner Stern had one other thing.
Yeah, I'm going back to parking. I don't know if Berkeley has any sort of ordinance or regulations on how curbside works. I don't know if anyone's ever driven by Live in Ferndale on a Friday night. They have like people directing traffic around the building for curbside pickup. I don't know if we have anything like that in Berkeley. And you guys I see on the plans that you're offering curbside pickup. So that's gonna be another,
That's a really good point. So if there's ways that you have
I think
that.
we really have to look at the parking closely.
I agree with that because it's first of all, obviously from a macro, it's unclear right now what's what, and even I had a question when I looked at it. So if I don't understand it, obviously you wouldn't either in terms of the information. So we need to make that quite clear. So with the American Legion, without getting too far into it, but American Legion is actually using our spaces instead of we using their spaces. So it's more of a, in theory, imposition to American Legion than kind of is to us. But that's not the issue because they're using it, they've been there, and they're used to using it. We got to figure out a way to make this work for everybody. So we'll make sure that it's clear about whose is whose and what is what. We're actually finding out from a curbside perspective, yes, we are doing it. But to my knowledge, and I understand what you're referencing about some of these locations have these huge long lines, I don't believe any of our locations are like that. And in fact, we're finding from Loom's perspective anyway, that our curbside demand is going down, especially as COVID is hitting, that people are coming into the facility more and more and more, and curbside is becoming less and less of an option. And we kind of see it happening that way. It's not going to go away, I don't think, but it's not going to be a major staple of what we're providing.
Oh, yes.
I'm speaking only for myself here. I personally don't like all of that empty space along a major thoroughfare in our town. So I'm wondering if you've given any thought to putting a wall next to the sidewalk to possibly some trees or some shrubbery or something to kind of disguise the fact that there's a huge parking lot behind there. Again, I don't know if that sentiment is shared by anybody else up here, but I just don't like all that car storage on a major route into our town.
Right.
So I'm throwing that out there for your consideration. I don't know I don't believe it's required by any of our ordinances, but I think it would be helpful.
Right. Well,
From a
what I'm
aesthetic
hearing
point.
from you and from other members is that area looks like it's a little neglected, if nothing else, and needs some help, is what it sounds like.
So that lot to the east of you then, that's not owned, it's a totally separate parcel owned by a totally separate entity?
No, it's the same owner owns that property. Those
Okay.
two pieces put together are the same owner.
Gotcha.
They're not?
No.
I thought they were. Weren't they the same owner?
1690,
Oh, you
I
mean
work in
1695?
1695, yeah.
Well, no, our parcels are two parcels. Then there's the parcel to the
Right.
east of that.
But-
So
Right, the one to the east is
right.
owned by 1695.
So it sounds like we need a general overview, which I think you get.
We'll have everything all clarified, visually clear about which parking spaces are whose and hows and all that kind of how that works.
Great.
We understand the confusion.
Okay. I want to kind of cut it off here because we have two more items to get to, but I hope you. Yes.
I had one other question.
Yes.
Sorry. Last month, during the sketch plan for the provisioning center was here, at that time, the planning commission made it clear to that applicant that they wanted a traffic impact assessment. I know that their traffic engineer and the consulting traffic engineer from HRC have had a lot of back and forth. I think they've come to an agreement about what that is, and so I could ask them to write it up and then share it with other applicants if you feel like that traffic impact assessment was needed in this case or in the other case.
So I think that, in my opinion, a traffic impact assessment might be a step too far. I think the bigger concern is parking, not necessarily the traffic on 12 Mile and any increases in that. I don't know if the rest of the commission would share that view, but I think we most definitely need some sort of parking study based on your current locations. What's the preference of the rest of the commission?
I mean, I would agree that I kind of have to wrap my head around what is available and what is required and all of that before I know whether we need to demand a traffic study as well. Because, I mean, in my head, those are really big lots.
Yeah.
So,
I just it was a big issue on the last one, I wanted to bring it up. And the other thing that was an issue, again, which you're a much larger site, is traffic circulation and how cars will come in and out and whether they'll be marking on the pavement to direct folks or signage or whatnot. I think that would be, defer to the planning commission, be helpful though to show what the circulation would look like on site, especially with these other shared parking areas.
Yes, so I would agree, and just a second, and I'll have you enter that. So, yes, I would agree that that would be helpful. Given the size of this site in comparison to a lot of the retail sites in Berkeley, it's kind of a little bit like apples and oranges here. This is just much larger than what we have in a lot of other areas. So I think that the internal circulation is maybe less of a concern in terms of any impact spilling out onto the roadway. But I do think it would be helpful to have that. If you wanted to be absolutely sure your bases are covered, because it sounds like some of the commissioners are maybe on the fence on the traffic impact statement, you may want to go ahead and just look into doing that to not give us any reasons to potentially table. I don't know that it's absolutely necessary, but it certainly wouldn't hurt. And then I know you had a comment on one of the questions.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the traffic impact discussion last month, that's a much smaller site.
Correct.
Poor circulation. And it's 11 miles, a lot different entity than 12 Mile. You got residents across the street. It's a wholly different environment.
Agreed.
I would like to see, obviously they need more information on parking and circulation would be very helpful, but that is I think it's very important on the other one. I don't know if it's as important in this location.
I would agree.
So before I hand it over to Michael, just to
Yeah.
follow up on that one of the advantages that we have is that we do have all these locations. And so we do have some locations that are pretty sparse on parking that, there's some, ins and outs with that. But we have a lot of other locations that we have quote unquote ample parking. This location has more than ample parking. It's just a matter of how it's allocated and where the cars are going. Once they get in, I understand that there might be some confusion, which we'll, clarify. But I don't think any terms of the traffic impact as was indicated is really the issue here, but I'm hearing what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to have your patrons get in a fight with the gentleman from the American Legion. That would
Not
not
on
be
a
good.
Friday afternoon after
No.
work.
Thank you. What I wanted to clarify was a dispensary for ourselves, just like some of our other fellow dispensary owners. For us, I can only speak for us, but the average customer is in and out of our store in 8 minutes. So this isn't a grocery store where they're there for an hour. They're in. Some people pre-order, so they know what they want. Some people do curbside pickup, so they've already made their purchase. Their customers are only in and out in about 8 minutes. The best comp example I can give is our store at Walled Lake, which is also in Oakland County. That store only has 11 parking spaces, and it's one of our busiest stores, and we get people in and out, and it's not been a problem. I came into this meeting, we're pumped. This store's got plenty of parking compared to what we're used to. So I can assure you, and if you're curious, visit Walled Lake. It's a beautiful area, and you can go and you'll see, they're in and they're out. If anyone stays any longer than that, that's because they're just choosing to. But we have a very efficient process to get people in and out in 8 minutes. The average is 6, but 8 is sort of the number we use. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that's the actual process. Thank you.
No, it is not.
You discussed our company a couple times, so I'm just curious about parking assessments.
And I would say that you should follow up with staff. Okay, we're going to move on now. Does anyone on the commission need a bathroom break or a break? Or you want to keep moving? Keep moving? Okay. Okay. Then we will keep moving. Next up is PSP 0722, 3916 West 11 Mile Quality Routes. This is the same sketch plan review, so we will not be issuing any approvals or considering use. We are simply providing comments on the plan, much as we did with the last item. Is the applicant here for this particular item? And Ms. Mason-Minock, did you have anything to add before we got started?
I just wanted to add that the applicant had a sketch plan, had a pre-application meeting with staff, myself, DPW, fire inspector, and 2 engineers from HRC on February 15th. They revised the package for sketch plan review on March 2nd. As they haven't paid any fees for site plan, unlike the previous agenda item, none of these plans have been routed through HRC, Carlisle, Wortman, or DPW for a deep dive. I noted in my letter that there were some inconsistencies between 2 sheets. It's really because based on the pre-application conference, they updated the surveys and the technical, the surveys and the site layout, but they didn't update the renderings. So that stadium style, from my perspective as your staff for community development, that stadium style parking where they're back to back, my interpretation of the zoning ordinance is that's not allowed. I know that there are certain areas in it where it's been allowed on 12 Mile, but then one person could pull forward over the sidewalk and out, and somebody else could go back. And so that's I just wanted to flag that that's an inconsistency. We've talked to the applicant about it. They're aware, they just, because they wanted to talk to you and have this opportunity, they didn't update the renderings, which of course would be updated, I assume, for a formal site plan application.
Okay, so this is just not as far along in the review process as the previous one.
Essentially, yes.
Okay. Okay, did you want to go ahead and give us an overview of your proposal?
Yeah, perfect. So first of all, my name is Michael Clark. I'm the vice president and co-founder of Quality Roots, along with my two brothers and father. First off, I want to start off by saying how excited we are to finally be here at this phase. I know it's been quite a bit of a long process, and we are definitely moving forward, looking through this process with the city of Berkeley. We truly respect and appreciate the process and the ability to come here before you today for our sketch plan review. To ensure that the site plan we plan on putting forward here in the next coming days is sufficient, and most importantly, something that you all will be happy with and the rest of the committee will be happy with. With our team here, we have Quality Roots, myself, Andy with Stucky Vitale, SES, PCI, Nowak and Frous, and of course the Showstack family and development company who's been helping us out with this project. We are very eager to start this process and continue this process as we move quickly to get our doors open as soon as possible. We are here to answer any questions and comments you guys may have today, and I'll pass it over to Andy here with Stucky Vitale to go over our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we did prepare a presentation, and we can cruise through it if we want, if that's helpful. It really kind of touches more on the background of Quality Roots, their connection to community where they've created stores already. Total stores in total now are...
Yep, we have 3 currently open, 1 under development, with 2 more. Berkeley would be our 4th store that we would open.
That's
our
correct.
5th store that we would open.
So their intent is to embed in the community, be part of the community. We have art murals that'll be part of this project to kind of fill the needs that we see happening in Berkeley and a number of different sites where we have sort of the blank walls set up. So we have incorporated that in this, and I know that we're not maybe as far along in the process, but we have had many meetings with your staff, even in the licensing process, where we've talked about a number of these things already, and our team is vetting them as we speak. Our intention is honestly to submit on Friday for the next submittal, and that's our goal right now. So our engineering is well along. So what you'll see here is about a month old already because we were required to submit it a month ago. So our team has been working for the last 4 weeks, and we're ready to submit. So, but we can touch base through this. I don't know how we control it.
So no,
Do I need the mouse?
No, actually, if you
You
can
wanna
tell
just
me,
key through
because
it?
that's
Okay.
going to help the people who are running it for the cable access as well.
Yeah, that works.
So, next slide.
Yep, next slide, please. So yeah, who we are, Quality Roots is a family company you guys may know, as well as Two Allergy Toys. That's the same family as us. We've done many work with Berkeley schools. Have been very proactive in regards to the Berkeley community for quite some time, especially with our store just over the border there in Royal Oak, right on Main Street. Next slide, please. Here's our team. Like I said, it's along with my 3 brothers, my father, and then of course the Showstack family, who's mainly, especially involved in the community with most of the restaurants, family operators as well, over 100-year-old development company as well. Next slide, please. Why us? Like we talked about, and reason why we're here. We're a family-based company that here is running cannabis. We look at it as a very similar opportunity as running a toy store. With a similar staff, similar customer experience, similar community impact to what we provide in our community. So on and so forth. Next slide, please. Skip that one as well. What drives us? Berkeley, even my brother as well, 8+ year resident of Berkeley, especially at the time of the application. He's lived on Oxford Street. He's lived on Fair Street as well. So longtime residents here, especially within the family. Next slide, please. The community, this is one of our first competitive applications that we really set forth and put together as a company. We understood that Berkeley was a place that we wanted to do business. I'm sure you saw, and especially with the company prior to us, they do have many locations throughout the state. Our focus is not to open as many locations as that, because our main focus is to go into communities that we feel most comfortable with and proceeding with those communities and giving as much community impact to them as possible. Next slide. The environment, I'll let Andy touch on this in regards to sustainability and some of the green features that we are putting onto this building as was required in the ordinance for cannabis.
We can get into it more specifically in following slides if you want to go for it.
Next slide.
Yeah, please. Education, like I said, even on March 9th in 2020, Twology Toys was honored, by the city of Berkeley and the Berkeley schools as the community partner of the year, which is also something that we plan on embedding here with Quality Roots. Like I mentioned prior, same type of experience, just a different product and a different variable, right? So that's the main aspect here, along with the Showstack family, with the amount of benefits of like Clear University. You take it over to Rochester Hills in our Twology Toys as well, and then even the Give Back program to, I would say, 80 local schools here in Michigan that we've done work with for Twology, which plans to do with Quality Roots, depending on if companies or organizations are willing to give or receive cannabis donations from a cannabis company. So we're able to finagle and work with Twology Toys as well to give those donations on behalf of Quality Roots. Next slide, please. Andy, I'll let you go ahead with the design proposal.
So we can go on to the next slide really quick. So like the other one, we have a number of sustainable features we're looking to do on this building. And if you're familiar with the building, it currently has no windows. It's a very omnibus building. It's painted tan, and you probably drive by it without even realizing this is a building. Our intent is to improve this building almost to the similar standard of the previous that our firm is also working on with the previous group. But this one in specific, we really wanted to do something different. We wanted to bring some of the brand from their other stores, kind of tying the two brands together and the other locations back to Berkeley, and really sort of giving some life back to a building that's been driven past and probably not recognized. There's actually some really interesting uses that are going on in the space, which will continue in the future as well as a secondary tenant to them. And the goal is to incorporate them into the space. So.
Yeah, one other thing I'd touch on as well, for us in even the beginning of the planning process and once this ordinance came out back in 2019, Quality Roots, we had many opportunities to look at multiple different properties throughout that 11-mile corridor, as well as Berkeley, as well as 12-mile. We figured with this property, especially with the property that's with an alley, and then with a property that's also coming, it's owned by the current property owner that we are buying this from, already at a parcel that was deemed parking, which is currently where that old garage is sitting. So having access off of Cummings, having ingress, egress off of 11-mile to create that traffic flow is definitely a main reason why we went forward and moved forward with this site.
That's right. And you can go on.
Next slide, please.
So this kind of gives you the before and after of the building. I think, I hope that it is seen as an improvement to this gray building that we have today. Our goal is to create a lot of natural light, use some natural materials, and really give it kind of a new facelift along 11-mile road. We have met with the Planning Commission a few different times about what would be permitted along the right-of-way. Our intent is to provide replacement of sidewalks as needed. The sidewalks there are not in really that bad of shape, but our goal is to improve the right-of-way also. We initially talked about doing trees. We've since have heard that we don't want to do trees, so we're not doing trees, but we're going to do some sort of planters that would be removable and maintainable and not a permanent structure on the site, but would be tucked up against the building so they're not impeding right away. You can go on to the next one, I guess. So this is the existing site, as Michael had pointed out. One of the main factors for us picking this site and making it part of our development was really because of the secondary parcel, which is part of the site, which is already zoned parking. So this isn't a new use that we're sticking right next to a house. This site is already a parking field for the business. Our goal is to really improve that. There's an old barn that's on the site that won't be used by the property. It'll be part of a demolition of the site. In that entire north section of the site now, that is up against an existing masonry wall separating the residential to our north will be all a green space now. It's a spot where we're going to use for bioretention and kind of slowing down waters as they enter into the storm system. If you go on to the, so this is a few examples. The alley is actually in need of a lot of work, and we've talked with engineering as well as Planning Commission about some of the improvements we can do there. We are going to move some light or power poles that are part of this that are kind of impeding the flow of traffic through that alley, and widening of the alley will also be part of this project. Now, we're only widening the portion that's touching our property, which helps for the site circulation, like Michael said. But we would hope that whatever we start here, the remaining residents to the west would do as they improve their properties. So sort of really setting a precedent, hopefully, for this side of how to improve this alleyway. Initially, when we started out on this process, you can see the building to our east, which is a neighboring facility. I'm not even sure what goes on there. I've lived in this area forever. I've seen it sometimes as a party store. I don't know if it's a party store, but something happens in here, and we initially were working with them on how to improve their site also as part of this alley extension. But unfortunately, it's not going to be part of this plan, but we're going to continue
They wouldn't
to
let you
work
knock
with
it
them.
down?
What's that?
They wouldn't let you knock it down?
We wish
We've,
we could.
yeah, to speak on that, we've tried reaching out to that property owner, like I said, even pre-application process and during the application process. Unfortunately, at this time, it's just, we're moving our separate ways, and he has his own building there, which in our site, doesn't affect any of his parking or any of.
It's a tribute to vinyl siding.
Yeah, we'd like to see the vinyl siding go somewhere. Ideally, it could be a future component to the site, but right now we don't need it as a piece of property. And you can go on to the next one. The existing conditions, I hope, are relatively obvious, but our goal is to really improve the entire site, make it hopefully an example for the area to do upgrades. New facades, increased green space, improved parking and traffic flow on the site. We are going to be installing bike racks in the rear as part of our parking reduction number, even though in the end we don't need it. And we didn't need the parking in the scenario of stadium parking also, which is, we talked on earlier, which we've adjusted since. Yeah, you can go on to the next one. So you can see in the new layout, this is a work in process. There are very detailed engineering drawings that support this now. But at the time of presentation that we sent to you, we wanted to use the same graphics. So if you can see, there is a shared access point to the west, which is currently undersized for the use, and they are using it as parallel spaces to our neighbor to the west. We're going to remediate the non-conforming parallel spaces and create a better access point to that site. And in the rear, we have the green space to the very top edge. We have 19 spaces in total now. We're required only 14. I know there's lots of discussion about ordinance maybe not being aligned with this, but either way, that's the only way we can look at it at this point. And looking at their other stores, this will have a very similar size. We expect a very similar product flow through it. They also focus on fast delivery and in and out quick 5-minute timings, and the systems provide for this, and it's an example of the other spaces.
Yeah,
so
and,
we don't see a major issue with parking on this site. So.
Yeah, and something I want to mention too, because even like I said, going forward with this process, we understood parking, especially now 2 years later. After we were approved, we did open 2 other stores, right? So understanding the traffic flow. To be quite frank, this will honestly be the most parking we have at any of our facilities. Like our gentleman from Loom said, our average time, even at our facility, including curbside, is anywhere from that 5 to 7 minutes. Of course, making sure they're in and out in a safe and efficient way. But like he said, and I'll say as well, it's not like they're there for an hour. It's not like they're there shopping around, especially with our model, especially with our floor layouts, which I'm sure you guys have seen some of the changes because of now operating stores. We understand flow a lot better. We see this as not being a problem at all. One thing I'll mention as well is, I know you had a comment regarding curbside. We have designated spots for curbside. I would say people in curbside have, especially at other stores, there's 3 spots. There's never, I would say, more than 3 people there at one time. Like I said, it's more of an in-and-out process. They're ordering it prior to them even being there. It's already ready to go in a package seal container, package sealed bag, and
Pickup times are scheduled.
Yep.
Yep. That's part of the software. There was something else I wanted to mention about it. Like any project, we can approve a project, or we'll hopefully be approved soon on this. They want to be a good neighbor. If they see that there's ever an issue with traffic on the site, they're obviously going to work with Berkley. If there's nuisances that come up for whatever it is, they're obviously going to work with Berkley. We're not trying to be a bad neighbor. And that's part of their process improvement as we move forward. And that would be surely something they could tell you with a straight face, that if there ever was an issue, they would help it be addressed. So you can go on to the next one. These are some of the elevations. They're in your formal packet, I think, in the original drawings that came through. But again, we're updating all 4 sides of this building. So we're not just doing the front elevation. The alley side entryway is actually just as important as the front. and we want this aesthetic to wrap around the building. So, and you can go on to the next one. These are some aerial views with a little bit of nighttime rendering. These are the views where there was some discussion about inconsistencies, and it's really the stadium parking in the far northeast corner is now just a single row of parking. So there won't be any issues there. And actually that allowed us to extend the green space all the way to the east property edge. So,
And one thing I want to also touch, sorry to cut you off there.
You're good.
The reason for, the doors in the front and the back, we understand, especially being local to Berkley for, quite some time. Even, me walking around the Berkley streets over at my brother's place forever. Walkability is a huge thing, right? There's many people walking throughout 11 miles. There's many people walking down Coolidge. There's many people walking down 12 miles. So to be able to have access from that front door as well as directly to the back entrance, not having customers or even staff having to walk all the way around that building to enter right on 11 Mile. So just wanted to point that out as well.
That's right. We'll see this a little bit more in the floor plan, which is also part of your packets. But there are other features as part of this. There's a green roof, very similar to the previous project, and the intent is there again to slow down rainwater some. We have some solar panels which will kind of complement the building from a sustainable standpoint and pick up a percentage of our power on site, as well as hopefully some sort of wind generation system. And as I understand, we're now limited to maybe one, so we can adjust that to make sure that it follows the rules. And then if you go on to the next one. This is a little bit more of a 11 Mile edge. Hopefully give you an idea at night is just as important during the day. And the goal there is to really increase some lighting on site and make it more walkable. This isn't a section of Berkley where we have public lighting yet today, but our intent is to illuminate sidewalk and make sure it's a safe and walkable space.
There is if I may interrupt, there is a existing pole out there.
Yeah, it lights the street, but not necessarily sidewalk.
Okay, thank you.
And
Is that
all
gonna-
of our lighting that we propose on site will be cut off and left on property. We understand we're up against.
So that's
the
not
neighboring-
gonna change, that pole.
That's right. Not at this point that we.
It's very
know of yet.
beautiful, too.
It is beautiful.
Matches the existing building.
That's right. Yeah, you can go on to the next slide. This is the rear, kind of like we mentioned earlier, it's really a four-sided building, even though one of our sides is up against the eastern property, but our goal is still to improve this, this section of property through there. And initially, our hope was to have a really true pedestrian alley, but again, some of the discussions with the eastern property owners kind of leaned it down a little bit, but our intent is that if it ever became available, we would look at a joint agreement to develop that all the way out to 11 Mile.
Definitely.
Go on to the next one. Interior design, it'll be very similar to any of the other stores. So if you've been into another Quality Roots location, it's very much, woods, kind of natural materials, a little bit of kind of green accent, but the goal is to really pull the community into this piece. So there will be a community art installation as part of the interior as well as the exterior on the west side of the building. So if you go to the next one. So this is the plan that Michael could get into a little bit more. That's changed a little bit since we initially submitted for licensure, but it's very much the same access. It's the same semi-restricted spaces versus restricted versus public space. But what it's allowed us to do is readjust how product comes in and out of space as COVID kind of taught us.
Yeah, so to even touch on this, I don't know if any of you guys have also been into our toy stores. We've even looked at that as even a huge example of how we've even positioned ourselves in the cannabis space, right? So very easily shoppable, pushing brands, products that are, able to be shown at the same time in the same type of spaces, and then also the flow, right? So as you can see, there's reasons why we have the secure vestibule. You can also exit out the rear of the building after checking out, so there's no customers going back and forth or bumping into each other after check-in. We do a full open waiting room check-in, hence why you kind of see the frosted windows from the exterior of the site. It's a state law that you can't see any product from outside the exterior. So what we do is a full glass window that customers are able to see right into the store as they're sitting in check-in. It gives a nice feel, gives a nice, let's say, willingness to ready to walk in there. And then even looking at shelving, wood shelving, clean glass display cases, pushing all different brands to really give everyone the full shopping experience. Hence, kind of the reason why we've switched up some of this floor plan, just because of the experience and everything we've had at our current stores right now.
Deliveries happen at the rear. I know that was a question in the previous. It'll happen in the kind of northeast corner in a secured way. Our dumpsters were brought inside a building, so our trash holding is inside of the space, so there's no worries about people thinking they're finding something in the garbage and making a mess in the neighborhood. So we've removed that functionality off of site, which very much like banks, they don't use dumpsters anymore. We have scheduled removals, and that way it's not a nuisance and there's no issues with HIPAA or anything else. So this is a retail function, but it's very different than most retail where you want to be seen from the outside. I think they'd like to be able to see into the store, but like you said, there's a lot of state rules around it. So we're allowing natural light in and making it feel energized and not just a blank wall. But again, we have to control views into the store.
Yep, and one other thing I'll mention, just similar to the previous applicant, there will absolutely no product being, packaged, right, inside the store. Everything that's received to the store through that door and through, like they mentioned, smaller trucks, vans type vehicles, is already packed and sealed. We do all of that in our processing center out in Battle Creek. So all those goods, whether it's packed flour, an edible, or any other type of use, those are all packaged, sealed, airtight, ready to go. And to even furthermore that, of course, as the other applicant mentioned, there was absolutely zero tolerance with using any product on site, exterior and interior. So that's a statewide rule, and even personally, that's a huge company policy that I feel very strong on. So definitely.
Yep. There still is a second floor function, which is our existing tenant. It's an accounting group who will be part of our second floor, and they have their own entry dedicated to them as part of this. So that's the section in blue. We have an internal sidewalk, if you will, since we can't have a sidewalk that connects front to rear on site. Because of our roadway, we've moved that pedestrian conflict into the building and kind of created an internal sidewalk within the building. So you can transverse from the north side of the building to the south through the space when it's open. You can go on to the next slide. So this is a little bit of a teaser of how the interior will look, but very much representational of their kind of grays and greens and natural colors and woods. So this is pretty much what we hope we'll see here. So yeah, I think that's the last slide. Oh no, this is a little bit of the community stuff.
So this is just some stuff. You can kind of just flip through this. We just kind of put together just some community canvases and everything that we've done to the city. We have an app that we're clearly working on that will be able to, have our customers and our patients being able to use an application. Next slide. And then some of the MVP narratives that I'm sure that I know you guys all.
Yeah, so we're not doing a growing facility, so some of the mechanics behind mechanical systems and electrical systems are a little bit different. It's truly a retail setting, but the goal is to do very high efficiency fixtures. We need to renovate this entire building. There's no system in here that will likely be reused. Even our sewers, we've learned, need replacement. So a lot of that will be ground up replacement as new, so we'll meet all of the new ASHRAE standards that are needed for all this stuff, and that's what this is kind of getting into. Carbon filters will be installed, HEPA filters as part of the system, so there's no concerns with odor. You can go on to the next one. This gets into a little more detail of that. Stormwater on site will be managed. Noach Frost is part of our team. They're very familiar with how this works. We've had lots of conversations about 100-year storms and all sorts of things that should only happen 100 years, but in this area, living in Huntington Woods and Berkley nearly my whole life, I know 100-year storms seems to happen every 3 years right now. So our concern with water is true, and we want to make sure that we're a good neighbor and that we've managed that. Next slide. Lighting, all the lighting on site and within building will be upgraded to LED. It just makes sense, and it's a good way to update our building without going too crazy with it. We've talked about some of the energy saving things we've already kind of went through. And this is a blurb on the team and what makes them a little bit different. I could read through it if we want, but I think it hopefully makes some sense. And you've heard some of it today, 100-year-old company. We have strategic partners that have surely been in this business a long time and understand how to deliver a building properly. And our team is working on it as we speak.
Yeah. Appreciate all you guys' time.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone from the audience who wanted to comment on this proposal? Yeah, please come up to the podium and state your name and address. We'll take notes on your questions, and then at the end of the public comment, we'll answer any questions.
My name's Ann McMinn, and my address is 1780 Cummings, so I'm their neighbor. And I'm confused as to which building is the current tenant moving out? You said a second floor? I just a blur about all that. This is the first meeting I've attended about this, so I apologize. I'm probably not up to speed, but I'm just looking more for who's in, who's out. I know the corner is a whole different thing, so if I could get that kind of mapped out.
Sure. Is there anyone else who wants to comment? Maybe if we could bring up an aerial photo, that might be the best way to show. Or the existing view from 11 Mile works too, from the packet.
I don't know if she can see that. But.
Well, they can bring it up.
We are not the eastern corner tenant, but it's the space just to the west of them. And there is a small 3-foot wide space that currently has a fence today that kind of separates the two buildings. There was an existing jewelry manufacturer, which most people probably wouldn't know. It was never advertised, but these guys made jewelry for jewelry stores all around the world. Pretty serious places. So there was a decent amount of gold and precious metals that were in this building, and that was probably the reason why it has no windows. So that tenant, since COVID, is actually needing much more space, and they've moved on. But there is an accountant that's part of the space that will remain, and there is actually a second floor piece to this building, and it's 300-ish square feet. It's really kind of a glorified office in a sense. But today you walk up this really kind of rickety stair. We're improving that with a new stair and access up to the second floor. It's not a Class A office space, but it's kind of B office, but it'll be updated as part of the building main renovation.
That-
So.
Yeah. Some of the people who are parked there now, like during the day,
It's mostly the jewelry manufacturing tenant that's there today.
and are they moving out?
They were initially incorporated into the use on first floor as like a reduced size footprint because they were moving into a larger manufacturing space, and they were going to maintain some presence in Berkeley, but since it didn't make sense to have two locations functioning, so they're going to be in.
So I might suggest that you get with your neighbors and kind of go over the plan in detail, so that if there's any specific questions that your neighbors have, that you have the ability to kind of explain them outside of this forum, because we would absolutely want to make sure that you have a very clear understanding of what's being proposed. So I would ask before you guys come back that you have the opportunity to reach out to your surrounding neighbors. Was there one more public comment?
Jim Olson, I live on Cummings. So you're gonna tear down the garage that's on that lot?
So I want to make sure that we don't get into a dialogue of back and
No,
forth
that's
here.
what the garage is being torn down. Now, behind the corner store, there's a new parking lot. On the website for the Berkley, they showed cars parking there. See the light?
Mhm.
The white
Yep.
pad?
Yes.
It's on the south side of that.
Right there, yeah.
They show cars parking there.
I think that's their parking field, as we understand.
Well, that's why I said, and you're only gonna use half of the lot north of the alley.
No, the north side is fully owned by this tenant, not the neighboring eastern.
No, but you're gonna tear the garage down. And are you gonna have that whole lot for parking, or just half of it?
The whole lot, to the north.
Okay, because the house that's north of that used to be a parking lot.
There's an existing, I think, 5-foot-high wall there.
Yeah, they built, that garage isn't that old.
So again, I would suggest that you reach out to your neighbors specifically.
To leave the business, you're gonna use the alleyway either to go to Cummings or Thomas.
Correct. Is my understanding the alleyway will be open for use.
City gonna maintain the alley.
So these are comments that I can ask Ms. Mason-Minnock to address afterwards if we don't have the answer for you this evening. But it's really, the comment portion is not meant to be like a back and forth. It's just a collection of comments.
It's a city alley yet, if the city's gonna maintain it for use.
We can address that. Is that the end of your comments? Okay.
Are they gonna limit turns onto the side streets from exiting the alley, so they don't go into the residential neighborhood to exit.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. So, limiting turns is something that would come up as part of a traffic impact study, which I'm sure we'll get into as part of our discussion here. They're public streets, so we don't have the ability to absolutely require turns to be limited, but it's definitely something that we can discuss. As far as the city alley, I would assume if it's city right of way, it would be maintained by the city. Is that correct?
That is correct, but I think that would also be part of the review by the Department of Public Works, and then we talk to that would be part of that review, and they would get comments back and whatnot.
Okay, so now let's get into the discussion by the Planning Commission. Again, please reach out to your neighbors before you come back. Commissioner Bartis, did you have any comments or questions on this particular plan?
Well, one question. You mentioned the DTE power pole on that back alley is going to be relocated.
It's already in process.
Okay. Was that okay? That seems like a tough thing to do, but
It'll be done before this building is.
okay. No, I mean, the only other comment to note is everything is bi-directional driveways here, so it's going to be lefts in and you can go in and out anyway, ultimately. So.
Commissioner Stern?
Is there a window on the second floor for the tenants up there?
There will be on the west. Am I allowed to answer that?
Yes, please come up to the
yes, please
microphone. This
answer.
is a dialogue. Yep.
Yeah, there is
There's little
sort
windows
of a
that I'm
window
looking
today,
now.
but it's not really a vision window, but there will be a new window facing towards the west. That it's part of that
Okay,
space.
so that's what this large rectangle is.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I had right now.
Commissioner Patterson?
I had another maybe I'm missing it. Do you have second floor plans, or are they not in our packet?
They're not in the packet today.
Okay, I didn't miss them. All right.
They will be,
Perfect.
though.
And I do think that's a huge improvement. But for the front, maybe some more windows along 11 Mile, if that fits. Instead of just the wood on top for the second floor. I know the first floor you guys said you can't, or yeah, maybe. I don't know. Just looking at it. But obviously it's a huge improvement from what's there, and unfortunately you couldn't get the building next to it.
We'll still try.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree. Please talk to your neighbors. It seems like, these are new to Berkeley and new to us, so it kind of helps everyone. But that's all I have right now.
Commissioner Kempner?
I actually think where you are, you can actually have 2 wind turbines, just for the record. Woodward 11 Mile, and in the industrial area, you can have arrays of multiple turbines.
Can I ask come back this way when you're done too?
Sure, when Commissioner Kempner's
Sure.
done.
Yep.
And I think that's all I have for the moment.
Okay. Commissioner
Okay, yeah.
Barnes.
Did you mention that the one property to the west, right now they use parallel parking across their building, and you're going to work with them to eliminate that parking and create the bi-directional?
As we understand, the building has been already sold for auction just recently.
Okay.
But they're today parking half on this property and half off another, kind of. It's not necessarily illegal unless we're making it a big deal, but the existing tenant wasn't making it a big deal. But now that we're being asked to look at that drive lane and make sure it's safe, we know we can't have parking and then a 12-foot drive lane and inspect two-way traffic down a 12-foot highway. Does that make sense?
Right.
And in the meantime, I'm already on it working with the new property owner there to talk about, of course, reaching out to our neighbors about that project, and I know that shouldn't be an issue for them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious if they're losing their parking, how it's gonna, are those spots in the back gonna be shared for their
I don't
use
think
at
they
some
were
point?
ever part of the actual building approval of them moving into it as spaces, but they use it
They
today
just
as
use it.
spaces.
Oh.
Does
They're
that-
not actual spaces there. All their parking is to the,
To the
right there.
west
That
side.
one,
Right in the
okay.
building, but they do have staff that it's probably just easier for them to walk to the front door if they were able to parallel park right against that building, which is not even deep parking.
And we have looked at traffic flow and have a consultant that's been looking at this with us. It was part of the widening of the alley. It's also part of a right turn only out of alley on Cummings, so we're not turning back into the neighborhood, which I think is part of the plans that were submitted was right turn only. And if it isn't, that's what's been discussed. So that's what we would plan with this site to
Okay.
remediate the question that came up from public about turning back into the neighborhood.
Right turn only with like a curbed island, or only signed as right turn
No,
only?
because they needed to widen the alley, or engineering has requested we widen the alley to new standards. So in doing that, we understand that people could still turn left technically, but it'll be signed as a right turn only.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Commissioner Dolan?
You know, I had a couple of comments that were actually addressed earlier. So I think as of right now, I am good.
Commissioner Richardson?
You sure you have enough support for a green roof in this building?
I think the previous project and this one, there will be reinforcing that'll be done. But again, this system is meant to go on retrofitted applications. It's a connected system, so it ballasts itself. There's no need for physical attachment for any winds or anything.
I love green roofs, but I'm skeptical that they get done, because people build roofs and it's very expensive.
Part of the education thing was to
Yeah.
talk sustainable and be a good steward of it, and there will be processes involved in their lobby space, which we'll talk about. You know, the savings that have been done, the amount of space that's being dedicated to sustainable, and the hope is to really educate how it's done and why it's done.
And we don't, in your package, please correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have a parking plan per se in that package.
We do, actually. It's
I don't see
part
it
of our
otherwise.
title sheet, kind of breaks it, well, it doesn't kind of, it breaks down the need for parking based on the different uses in the building, the secondary tenant on the second floor. It takes into account a 2 deduction parking space with 4 dedicated bike spaces. So the need calculates out to 14. We understand that that could be a light number, so we're providing 19 spaces, which is nearly a 20% add to the minimum required.
You know, I still have reservations about the adequacy of parking there. I take what you say at face value. You had mentioned that you have experience at your other sites.
Correct.
I'd be very happy to have you present some of that experience to us
Yeah,
to
yeah,
help
I can-
convince us that this is adequate parking. Understand that these are new facilities here, and we don't know what to expect as far
Berkeley
as.
could be completely different, and we understand that too.
As far as
To touch
clientele.
on that, yeah,
So-
sorry to cut you off. One of our stores is even located in Hamtramck, right off 75 in Kniff. I don't know if any of you guys have been on Kniff, but during major times of the day, it's probably one of the busier streets, I would say, in Detroit area, or Metro Detroit area, and including in Detroit. So even with ingress egress, never has been an issue. With
11
people
parking spaces.
with I think
11
parking
parking
spaces there. Never been an issue even with customers curbside deliveries coming to the back door. There's a separate area for that happening. And like I reiterated earlier, this is probably the most parking that we'll have in any of our facilities. But I definitely understand your comment with it's new to the industry, you're new to the business, and definitely new to the city. So
Related to that, I think during rush hour anyway, we do get traffic backups from Greenfield all the way back that
Yep,
far. So I'd hate to exacerbate that condition.
no, for sure.
That's really the hope for those peak times, that this alley to the west, or access point to the west, which doesn't have any parking in it anymore, is now truly just a drive lane that would act as sort of a queuing space for these top needs when it's necessary. So
I don't think we're gonna ask for a parking study, right? But
Good.
we are proximate to a residential neighborhood here, and during peak times, the temptation will be to use the side streets, the residential streets, and I'm just wondering about the impact on the neighborhood. Again, whatever information you have at your disposal, I would like to have it presented to us.
Yep, that's no problem.
based on the counts, they could give you a good idea of what their business model would be for this. And we anticipate the need for under 10 spaces for that to happen within and be successful still and not a nuisance. So we think that we've provided a good amount here. Again, like I said, we've been talking with the traffic consultant about this. It wasn't necessarily a full study that was requested by anyone yet, but we knew it would be part of this discussion, and we wanted to make sure that we were doing the right things here.
That's all I had.
Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, parking, as you've heard tonight, is a big deal. I mean, again, this is new to us, and we just don't know. And you're maximizing the site. I don't mind the double-stacked parking in this location, but I will take the 20-foot, 18-foot green space all the way across the back of the property over that. So, like the other applicant and the previous applicant, you have to show us that the parking's good, because this is just a new animal for us. You have good circulation on this site. There's no doubt about that. It's just a matter of
Hopefully it gets better with that. Other
number of
buildings.
spaces, yeah. Again, I commend you with the investment you're gonna make in the building, compared to what's there. I drive up and down the street every day for 38 years, and it hasn't gotten better. Neither of these two buildings we discussed here on this corner. So I commend with the investment you're gonna make in the building. Again, I just go through it sheet by sheet, because that's how we do things. Or how I do things. Showing an awful lot of trees in a garden behind the tribute to vinyl siding there building. On the east side, on your renderings, and on the east side, then behind it to the north, is that part of your plan, is to plant all those?
What we mentioned earlier, initially, when we submitted for licensure over a year ago, that was part of the plan. It was to create kind of a pocket park, in a sense, without it being dedicated to city, but surely a give back to residents in the area. But they've since created parking spaces there for themselves. It used to be a garage that was demoed in the last 10 years, which you're probably familiar with. So as of right now, it is not part of the plan.
So it's not part of your work?
That's,
okay.
we would love to see it, but.
Yeah, well, we would too. Again, the roof structure with the plant, the green roof, is this little containers similar to the other project, or is this a built-up?
It's a palletized system again.
Okay, again.
It's not containers like you might sense, but they're kind of egg crates that are, I think, under 12 inches high total. So this is they call it an extensive system. It's not an intensive system. So it's meant for existing buildings.
And as a fellow architect, I worry about things blowing off roofs onto neighbors' buildings and their windows, so.
Sure, that this is a product that's used in plazas all over the world where you have lower level spaces occupied and parks on top of them, and it's a very similar system, and it's tested.
Okay, you have and this is minor, but you have a AU sign over your northeast entry.
Again, this is the
Doesn't
jewelry
appear
tenant.
they go in that way.
Yeah, and they're not a tenant in the building or won't be in the future,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's just that accountant or whatever in the front. Okay, so that goes away. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I was wondering how they got to their part of the facility, if it was. Like wood exteriors, it's okay. Everybody seems to want a wood exterior.
It's surely newish, hopefully not dated 20 years material.
Well, believe it or not, that's pretty much all I have. I think everybody's covered it pretty well. Gonna be doing extensive rebuild of the parking lot in the drive.
Yeah, that's where all of our below grade retention's happening.
Right.
We will extend the masonry wall along the eastern property line to contain the parking field. We know it's not a requirement. Most cities,
Along Cummings?
most cities do it, so we're doing it as part of this, and then we're creating a secondary green space on the east side of that wall to kind of soften the wall on sidewalk side.
Okay, but there's no, okay, so but you won't be able to do the pocket park.
Depends on what you consider pocket, I guess. It could be pocket and park, but it's what, 15 feet wide? Maybe Frisbee, I don't know. gone.
Well, I mean, as far as what's shown on the renderings,
Yeah,
that's not
it's
gonna,
not like
that's not gonna happen. And I had a question regarding the dumpster, but that's been, answered. Okay, I don't really have a lot. Watch your photometrics, looks like you're
Yeah, we'll submit
pretty
them as
good.
part of the final.
Well, that's on
package.
here. We have that.
It'll be updated
Yeah.
with the stadium parking gone and probably.
Yeah, that'll affect some things. You have a lot of light going into your buffer back there, and maybe that's intentional, your landscape buffer.
It was the goal, just to kind of make sure we don't have issues with people wanting to sleep there.
That's where I was gonna go with that. You don't wanna,
Safety and security is really
Okay.
the main thing. With the wall being the cutoff element for
the,
the
yeah.
less travel.
And that's an existing, what, 4.5 foot wall, something like that? 5 foot, okay. Okay, that's really all I had. And again, convince us you have enough parking, and I can't say that enough. 'Cause
Well, initially, that's why we used the stadium parking as a methodology for this, and we were gonna truly use it just for employees only, so that there was no issues with in and out, but we understand it's not an approved way of parking here in the city, but I guess if we wanted to, it could always be a fallback if we see there's an issue and we want 3 more spaces.
But in this case, with the residents right on top,
That's pretty typical, though, with a masonry wall, that parking's right at the edge, but that's what
oh,
the
yeah.
wall mitigates any kind of light and travel and all that.
Yep, okay.
Commissioner Patterson and then Commissioner Richardson.
Yeah, I just, so you're talking about pocket park, like that green space in the back. I mean, where the stadium parking was, that's all gonna be green space
It'll be
now.
green space, but it'll be
fenced
used
in.
for, retention and, or swale.
So
or
I mean, people could
pre-treatment.
play frisbee there.
Depends on how,
All the,
certain times.
yeah.
They'll drain away in about a month and a half with our clay.
Well, that was a lot of the discussion with engineering early on, was making sure that our infiltration works. And,
There is actually no infiltration at the site, but the management system will be able to store some surface water in that bioswale that will be able to drain out. So.
There's no below-grade retention today, so we hope that this new system, which is definitely a big cost to the project, but important, will help manage any water concerns that are there today. And again, it's a parking field today, so it's nearly the same amount of parking we're putting in there, but we're gonna do it in the correct way with engineered standards.
Commissioner Richardson?
So we don't have a landscape, you didn't submit a landscape sheet here, did you?
No, that wasn't included in the sketch submittal, but we have since developed one that will be included as a
Okay.
site plan approval.
You're intended to use only native species, I hope.
I can make a note and talk to our landscape architect about that.
We did talk about that early on, and it would be, it would meet your ordinance requirements for species types and,
We don't really have any.
None. Good luck finding those.
Find that hard to believe, but okay.
I would like
So-
to see
so-
different
So do you.
species, no matter what the ordinance says.
But anything we do plant in that area would have to be, resilient to water and these things, so it would be designed for that
Okay.
Okay, I just had a couple wrap-up things. Again, with the parking, please include some parking counts from your existing facilities so we have a good idea of how that will function on this site. I would be interested to know what you're doing in between the buildings, especially since you don't have the cooperation of the adjacent property owner. So I would want to know what that space is gonna look like. And, okay. And then the rain barrels, again, are those just for
That's for this
water
area that you just
storage?
mentioned. That's where they'll likely be located now and where we're showing them in renderings. And it's really to slow down the infiltration rate more than anything.
Can they be something other than blue?
Yeah,
Okay.
we wanted them to stand out so you could tell where they were, but yeah, the colors. There's actually a guy who sells them right on 11 Mile there that I know we could probably buy.
Okay.
It's a truck.
They could look like construction barrels, we're all used to those.
Orange. Yeah, that's right.
That's all I had, so. We'll look forward to reviewing your plan, and please talk to your neighbors.
Am I allowed to ask how you would like representing their previous stores? Is this okay in the letter format? Do you want to see site plans of their other spaces? How do you?
Yeah, a letter format is fine.
Per day, I mean, we can pull anything.
I think I'd be interested, I don't know if you have a peak hour, but I'd be interested in a sampling of maybe an off-peak time of a couple peak times. I want to know just how many cars in an hour come and go from the parking lot.
And number of employees.
With the
Yeah.
with the size of the retail, like the number
Yep.
of stations or whatever.
Yes, and the number of employees would be important too, yes.
They do a very similar size space for each of their spaces, so I think it would be a good comparison. Like we talked already, Berkeley could be a different anomaly than Hamtramck or some of these others, which are drive-to destinations. But I hope with public transport, our transit down 11 Mile and very active bus system, I hope we see a less of a need here than we would in somewhere else. Like I don't know a great example in this area. Some of the Ferndale spaces do not have public transport going through them or by them. So.
Right. And one thing we're going to push too is what we've done in the application from the start, right? We're going to push on hiring locally, right? I think we said close to about 75% of our staff will be Berkeley local residents. That's what we're going to push for. So even emphasizing on, taking bikes, maybe walkability, maybe a carpool program between employees that all live close to the area. I mean, that's something that even our employees do out in our Hamtramck location as well as Battle Creek.
So maybe, I don't know if you have room inside, but a bike storage closet or something for employees might be something nice to include. And then lastly, I had one other thing written down. I believe Oak Park has a plan for their side of 11 Mile in terms of streetscape elements. I'm not positive, but I think they do. It might be worth it to reach out to them so we have some coordination on both sides of the street.
Master plan driven thing, but not a ordinance yet. But yeah, we can reach through to Oak Park and make sure it's commensurate with what they're doing.
Okay.
And one more thing, if I may.
Yes.
We will strongly discourage customer parking north on Cummings. Okay. So how that happens, we'll probably discuss in the regular meeting. So.
Yes.
Sure. I mean, it could be part of their intake process with their patrons who hopefully are return customers, that it's, recommended to them to not park there and park on site.
Right, and also to your point, at our other store, there's street parking available right across that street. We encourage all customers to park inside the parking lot, in our parking lot. Especially having Kniff Electric, which is one of the bigger companies out there that of course take up majority of the space, especially on the exterior of their building, and we of course respect that for them. So.
Yeah, because that's the biggest impact to the neighbors.
Sure. That's where you'd have the most complaints.
Other than this being a new type of retail they have that may impact some neighbors, but the parking, the disruption is the biggest impact that the immediate neighbors do feel.
And on that, Marty, to the width of Cummings is wider there.
It
on the
is.
other
I don't
side
know.
of
I was
the
gonna
alley,
say-
So it may invoke parking because it looks as if
Could probably get-
I'm looking at the Google Street View. There's definitely 24 feet for 2 cars plus parking.
That's a wide, it widens out on the west side there.
widens.
Actually, it widens out on both sides, it looks like.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but could be parallel parking there. I don't know. Let's be something, cruise by next time. Take a look at it, but that may be something to consider.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and we will.
Appreciate your input, and this is helpful in finishing this thing up the right way. So.
We look forward to working with you.
Thank you. We're excited. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Keep going? Everyone's good to keep going? Okay. We have our last item on the agenda under new business this evening. This is PSP 0622 3737 12 Mile for the construction of 7 row homes. Would the applicant please come forward?
Hi.
Good evening. Thanks for hanging around with us till 10.
Now they're all tired and in bad moods. Let's get to this one.
I do appreciate and then the long meeting doesn't help, so I do appreciate you guys all being here. We are at a little bit of a time constraint with.
Can you just hold on for just a second?
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind, if you guys could take the discussion outside just so we can get to this next item. Okay. Sorry.
That's fine.
Go ahead. Actually, I'm gonna go to staff first. Do you have any information to share with us?
I just, a couple of things is that, no matter what action you take tonight, I would ask that you make a determination on the waivers that are requested.
Right.
So the 0-foot setback for the proposed 8-foot setback from 12 Mile, 0-foot setback for 1-foot 9-inch setback from Phillips, waiver the 0-foot setback for the proposed 4.75-inch side yard setback, and then a waiver of the 40% transparency for 26.3% transparency on the front-facing 12 Mile. So any motion that you have, if those could be part of it, if you're going to grant those waivers. In my letter, we recommended that the planning commission table the site plan until the geotechnical investigation had been done and initial feedback from the Road Commission of Oakland County. And that was per HRC and DPW. When the applicant emailed this presentation today, when I looked through it, I saw the letter at the end that's from the engineer. I sent that to both Derek Schuler, the DPW director, and Eddie Smitch from HRC, and asked them, does this information change anything? Because I felt that you would probably ask me. And DPW director Schuler emailed back that this is the same information that was provided on the previous site plan submittal, and that they're proposing a perforated pipe system to store the required runoff in both pipes and surrounding stones. The geotechnical report is important because the water table in that area is only a few feet deep, and the open detention system would never be able to store enough runoff because of the infiltration of the surrounding area. And and in his experience, they haven't seen one of these systems approved in Berkeley yet because of the existing soils and the high groundwater levels. And then Eddie Smitch also echoed his comments, and he said without the geotech report and the recommendations, they wouldn't approve this type of detention system. And to date, in his experience again, no development in Berkeley has been able to prove that this is an economical design. Even if they were to go with a geotech recommendation, they would still require some sort of pre-treatment, and the parking lot would carry sediment and debris. So I just want to bring that information to you as you're doing your deliberations tonight.
Okay. So it sounds like we have and I'm going to get to your presentation in just a second, a couple different issues. We have these waivers and modifications that are outstanding that really have nothing to do with the stormwater, but are separate issues that we would like to provide direction on this evening for you for sure. And then we have this separate stormwater issue to tackle.
Right, and so in your choice is whether you have a site plan approval tonight, or whether you table, you could approve with conditions, deny, or table.
Okay. So, please proceed.
My name's Daniel. I'm here with my business partner, Ari. And we already own and built stuff in Berkeley, so we are aware of like the clay soils and the flooding that happens. My house flooded at one point in Berkeley, so I'm just going off what my civil engineer recommends and going off Oakland County, just on the storm water. And we do intend to do geothermal, but they're so backed up and extremely costly right now because they're so backed up that like we are under contract for the building to purchase, and we have a limited amount of time to do site plan approval to get bank financing. So I'm asking, because the majority of the comments are for engineering, for those to be picked up during building permit, because we do intend to make this building right. So, but the site itself is, it's the 2,000 square foot retail Minuteman printing and a duplex on one parcel. So, and we want to build 7 row homes or townhomes on closer to 12 Mile, but we want to give some landscape buffer, and that's why we're asking for the 8 feet on that side. Due to the irregular shape, if you go to the next slide, if we just go to renderings, due to the irregular shape of the lot, the side yards are, they range from, let's see, that the east side goes from 6 inches to 1'9", because I want to keep the building parallel to 12 Mile. And then the other side is 4.75 to 1'8". So unless I want to make the building a parallelogram, like that's why there's the required setbacks, and I don't want to corner my building on the property line. So, haven't done site plan review in a while, so if there's those are the big ones. It's just the side yard setbacks, because the townhomes are allowed in the 12-mile district, and we built 7 townhomes instead of 10 because we wanted to make sure everyone had the parking requirements of 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit, and all the parking for headlights face north, so they don't go on my neighbor's property, because we don't want any issues with any neighbors or anything like that. So.
Okay. So since this is kind of 2 separate things, I want to kind of go through the waivers first. And I have written down that you are requesting. Go ahead.
Chair, are we going to do a hearing, a public hearing on that?
It's not a public hearing. Is there someone that would like to comment? Did you want to comment?
Oh, she's
okay. So no, I don't think it's a public hearing.
He's with me too.
Application for site plan approval, is it?
It's an application for site plan approval, but I don't believe a public hearing is required.
No, because it's a permitted use in this district, so it's not a special land use, so there's no public hearing and it hasn't been noticed.
All right.
So I want to start with the waivers. So you mentioned the side yard setback. You have that. You have the 12-mile setback. You have the Phillips setback. So kind of like a collection of setback waivers. And you're looking at 2 different issues: the irregular shape of the parcel, as well as the need to provide some buffer between the sidewalk and the front facade on 12 Mile. So let's start with the 12-mile setback. What are the commission's feelings on a waiver of the 12-mile setback?
Where's everybody looking at me?
Oh,
I think it's fine.
Does anyone object to a waiver of the 12-mile setback? How about
No,
that?
I think the idea of a residential, due to privacy, and just the idea of a residential space as opposed to a commercial space, I think a setback's fine. A little bit of a front yard for what it's worth. It's not something that, in commercial, we want them right up to the line so people walking, driving, whatever by, they see the activity in the spaces. You don't want people to see the activity in your space. So it's a totally different animal than a commercial, so I think it's fine. 8 feet's fine.
I agree.
Our previous discussion, I think we used some different figures, like 5 feet. And I'm not saying I object to 8 feet, I'm just wondering how you selected 8 feet.
In the sketch plan review, I was being a little modest of just like, if the setbacks were set at 0, I just want to give more buffer, and the 8 feet was just enough to maybe for privacy wise, for a little bit, maybe a tree in the front, some more landscape buffer. If I only have 5 feet or 4 feet, there's just not enough to put, a tree or anything like that.
Okay, thanks.
And I do have some color renderings, because the ones I provided to you were black and white. Do you guys want these at all?
Sure.
It'd be nice to pass along.
So it sounds like everyone is in support of the 12-mile setback waiver, and I want to go through these waivers first because I think this is the easy part. So I want to kind of tick through those. The Phillips setback, this is due to the shape of the lot. It is a little bit skewed. Do any of the commissioners have objections to the requested waiver on the Phillips side setback?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
My only question, what's going to be between your building and the sidewalk? What is the material on the grade?
The landscape plan doesn't have anything on there. That needs to be revised. There will be some just small bushes, mulch. I know it's not going to be a defined plaza, but like adding landscaping to the sidewalk is going to be ideal, and we want to make this building really nice.
Okay.
So that would be my one condition request, whatever, is that, like, we have to find that this is a pedestrian area in order to approve the setback. That's what our ordinance says. So when I go through our design guidelines, right, a landscaped area can be used as one of our pedestrian areas. So, yes, just put something there so that we can say that it's landscaped, and that fulfills our ability to find it as a pedestrian area.
And it looks like you have some shrubs shown, and then maybe on the rendering, it looks like you've got some grasses in there too.
Yeah, I mean, the renderings aren't exactly what
Yeah.
the plans show. It's more of like an image that we done a month ago when we submitted. So before I got the landscape plan, it's pretty similar. But I do like tall grasses. So on the west side, it does face my neighbor, and there's a driveway there, so that would probably be more mulch, maybe some hostas or maybe some tall grass there, but there's not a lot of room over there, so, but no pedestrians walk that way.
Is there pavement right up?
I'm gonna have a curb there. And their pavement goes to the building currently.
Well, maybe it's just,
But 1 foot of the pavement is technically my yard.
maybe it's just a matter of, not pea gravel, but
Yeah.
river rock, just what we call maintenance strip, with just river rock with a fabric, so we don't get weeds underneath. Because I don't see trying to plant something there, just bake in the west sun.
Yeah,
what's
it'll die.
beside it, nothing to live. So, okay, so maybe just, like I said, not pea gravel, because that'll be everywhere else.
Yeah.
River rock.
So, go ahead.
Just a suggestion.
On 12 Mile, the rendering has the tree, like you said, on the front. There's no intention for fence or anything, right, to create a small yard, and I'm not even sure, like, if that's would not be allowed. I'd have to check on.
I don't know if we have any fence standards for that. I'm guessing no.
Hard.
We don't allow fences in front yards of other
put 'em in front
residences,
of the
but
house.
I don't think you want to break it up, I think,
Yep. Fences in the residential area, you can't go past the house, so,
Yeah, I guess I feel like I've seen this type of home in the area with.
yeah. We
fen-
provide a rooftop deck. We essentially thought that would be their outdoor space, because the whole back portion of the property is pretty much a drive aisle and a parking space and a few islands for just some landscaping too. So they don't have like an outdoor grassy area, but what
I'm just
Matt
thinking-
presented, we have very nice parks around. So we hope this is more of an urban, people walk type of community.
Yeah, and then there's the front entrance right off of 12 Mile, but I'm assuming the rear entrance is probably gonna be used because that's where the parking is most.
Yeah, I mean, ordinance says I need an entrance off 12 Mile, so I'm just trying to check all my boxes of me not asking for another variance or a waiver or anything like that. So I would picture more people using their back entrance in the front.
Except for like parades and.
Yeah, there'll be instances.
Cruise Fest, whatever.
So, before we get into more specifics like that, so it sounds like, as a package, your waivers for the 12-mile Phillips and side yard setback all have the support of the commission. The other waiver that you're requesting is the front elevation transparency. And I would again defer to the commission of whether or not you're in support of that.
Well, I would say much like the setback, this is a private residence, and, we're not, well, I could repeat myself, but it's the same as the setback, the 12-mile setback, as far as the transparency. It's a little more private space than it is residence, so.
I would agree.
No problem whatsoever.
And if we require more windows, they're just gonna have blinds on them anyways. I mean,
Right.
it's
Yep.
We're providing a really nice
Understandable.
brick, not a
For
pretty
sure.
generic brick, and a pretty nice
Have the
metal
curtains
siding to
closed
go on
anyways.
top of this. I'm not trying to do any like standard hardy plank siding,
right.
anything like that.
I think more window space might actually ruin the aesthetic.
Yeah.
So the privacy.
And we do have more windows on the second and third floor, pretty big for that, and to compensate for not a lot of windows on the first floor.
Okay, so The waivers, you have support for all of your requested 4 waivers from the commission. Now, before we get into some of the details of the plan, I want to kind of just dive right into the elephant in the room, which is the stormwater.
Yes.
Something that we definitely have to talk through. So you said you have your geotechnical survey scheduled?
Yes, they're extremely backed up. I mean, we just hope that we can submit that with the building permit. You know, we're not the most extremely wealthy, you know, developers with an entourage of, you know, 10 lawyers like the dispensaries. So, you know, putting all the money in before we even own the building is hard, but we do have it scheduled, and we do know the conditions of that soil. I'm not big on the 100-year stormwater management, but I'm asking my civil engineer to design something that will accommodate that. He should have been here, but due to an urgent hospital matter, he's just not present right now.
When is that scheduled?
Literally, it just happened last week, so it's going to be 6 weeks from now.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to kind of get the bearings on where you are with that before we start discussing it. So who, I guess, wants to start with this one? Because it seems like something we definitely have to sort out.
I'll start.
Go ahead. I was hoping that you would start.
Looking through the calcs for the detention, you're using the new Oakland County standards.
Mm-hmm.
You're not showing infiltration rate. You have 0 inches per hour. You're showing in your contact calculations, you're showing a 72-inch pipe perforated with a little bit of stone, like 20% of using the void area of the stone is you're picking up another 500 cubic feet. Why don't you just make the pipe solid and lengthen it a little bit?
I can refer that to my civil. I totally agree. I think just we designed it so it can hold as much water for the 100-year, and designed it so it doesn't release anything, but we were hoping it does. But I think that was his without doing the geotechnical report before. So
I guess that would be my shoot from the hip. Is the clay? The soil's very clayey, so maybe not try fight it.
yeah. And I'm just hoping for like a conditional approval based on that, because we are in the process of that. We just don't want to hold up financing and you know, moving the project forward.
Well, my comment is for many years, our habit, correct me if I'm wrong, Marty, was to approve conditional upon approval of the stormwater connection by the county. And you can't get anywhere without that that county approval. It's really irrelevant what our ideas are about a conforming stormwater system. I mean, so in essence, any discussion we have here is about that is kind of advisory, because we're not the final word on that. That's my understanding of how it all works out. So I wouldn't have any particular problem approving this subject conditional upon further approvals by the county. Personally, I wouldn't.
I have a question. So we often get our DPW and public safety and all of that kind of sign-offs on stuff. I very rarely have seen DPW say, hold up, no, wait, do not approve this. So my question is, why, like, I don't understand a ton about stormwater stuff, so why this time?
The honest truth is that the applicant asked to be on this agenda because of their financing and because you had seen them at sketch plan before. That's the reason that I put them on the agenda, and then circled back quickly. He's resubmitted. If you look, he resubmitted on the Monday of last week. So it went back to all the reviewers. Carla Wortman was able to turn around because essentially there wasn't anything else in their comments before, but neither DPW or HRC had a lot of time to look at it. And that was the reason I was reading out the emails today. Normally, if it wasn't a case where we had a sketch plan before and the applicant had asked, wouldn't have brought them forward. And I think another situation that you had that was similar was the Greenfield offices. They came to you in October, and then they were tabled, and not only because of engineering issues, but I think some other things. And that one also has a public hearing. So normally I wouldn't bring this forward with HRC and DPW having these comments, but that's the reason. The other thing maybe also to think about, and I mentioned this to the city manager today, is as you're getting with the 100-year stormwater standards from Oakland County and the increased amount of commercial development you were seeing, it might be worthwhile when you're going again, you have a long list of things for a zoning ordinance rewrite, to look at a preliminary site plan and a final site plan review. Whereas a preliminary site plan could come to here without all the blessings of engineers and get that kind of conceptual approval. And then when everything's buttoned up in the end, then they come back and it would be a choice in that zoning order whether they come back to the planning commission or whether it could be done by staff administratively. So there are two options there, and I'm sure the design professionals have worked with communities which have, different processes that work like that.
I can add, like Berkeley is a little bit different with having the geotechnical and all that engineering done for site plan approval from some other communities. But I will, in our initial site plan submittal, we did have water and water going to Phillips instead of 12 Mile. And when my civil engineer, we switched that to 12 Mile.
Yeah.
But my civil engineer talked to Mitch right away, and that's from HRC, and he said that was the main reason why he denied us because of that. And we were just trying to not put another hole in 12 Mile because it's a lot more difficult on 12 Mile than Phillips. But since then, we did move it to 12 Mile. They just haven't had a chance to review our comments like Megan said.
Okay.
I think there's only one person sitting here of the 9, 10, 11 people who have the faintest idea about or I have a faint idea, but obviously
I agree.
Ms. Dowling is the one who
Yeah.
understands this the most, and what she said makes sense. But if this should go forward, everything else, as I said, the DPW, or HRC, the county, everybody has the final say. I don't think, in my opinion, tabling this for any of us is really gonna make a difference, because we will not have a lot to say about, let the professionals who understand it make the final determination. I don't think we have a great opinion on a workable stormwater detention underground here. So I'm just throwing that out as opposed to tabling it. It's a condition, it's a big condition, it's an expensive condition. But there's nothing coming back to us that's gonna change any perception we have of the project.
No, he has to get their approval.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter how many approvals we hand out here, he's gotta get theirs or he's dead in the water. So, literally, so I don't see any point in getting hung up on that issue, because we don't really ultimately, we're not the ultimate authority on that. That's just
We are
my-
identifying it, that it's a condition of our approval,
Right.
but it depends on someone else
So-
downstream.
If he doesn't get his approval, then our approval dies too.
So I'm a little bit leery of getting in the practice of the slippery slope of, I understand what you're saying in terms of this particular item. I don't feel like I have a ton of knowledge on how to address this or what's deficient. But I don't want to end up with a whole bunch of plans coming to us, particularly with our increased volume that we've been seeing, where there's a recommended denial from this reviewer and a recommended denial from this reviewer, and all of a sudden we're approving things subject to 6 or 7 different conditions. So I think to be comfortable recommending or approving this particular item, that whatever motion was crafted would have to be very specific in terms of, you know, maybe not just addressing the items in the public works, but specifically talking about the applicant obtaining the required geotechnical survey, also addressing the items in the public works, that if any substantial site changes are made in terms of staff review, or when it comes back for staff review, that it comes back to us.
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure we're making this a very unique circumstance then, and not like a typical circumstance.
And it only is one, well, I have another one, smaller, but it's only one condition, not several.
Oh, I agree. I'm just like imagining instances where we're saying, well, we let the the stormwater go on this one. Maybe we can let them work out the fire lane detail or whatever it might happen to be.
And while I think I get the concept, right? We're not going to change anything. I also hate to not listen to our experts, right? Our experts are DPW, and DPW is saying, don't approve it. I feel like,
Well, I don't think I've ever seen a letter from DPW that says approve it in the absence of county approval.
Right. They still do, they say that all the time.
routinely say, don't approve it.
Right.
You know.
well, I think
and-
HRC does. I don't know that DPW usually
Oh, they do.
does.
They do.
Deep-
They did.
And that was because of the water main issue, me trying to go off Phillips instead of 12 Mile, which we corrected in this set.
I would agree. If you don't get county approval, it doesn't really matter what we say
Yeah.
up here.
Road commission be the same. I mean, that's
Yep.
another thing.
But I also agree, like, we're not the experts, but our experts are telling us red flag. Like,
Well, for lack of information. They're not
Correct.
saying
Correct.
this isn't
So-
working.
Yeah,
So if our
that-
plans aren't, what we're going off of aren't complete, then
Well,
So I want to rely on Commissioner Dolan's expertise, and sorry to put you on the spot, Shiloh, but looking at this with the amount of information that you have, do you feel like there's a solution to this if the geotechnical doesn't come back correctly? It sounded like you were saying before there might be a workable solution.
It seems to me just making pipe solid, getting rid of the aggregate storage, lengthening the pipe out to make up the difference is a pretty viable solution. Now, there might be some stuff going on that I'm missing looking at the plans at the desk here, that, you know, maybe there's not enough room to extend the pipe out. But I kind of agree with you as far as, I agree with both of you, actually. I can see I can see both sides. I don't know if they have to have it, because there are some communities that you have to
Absolutely.
have it, you have to give them engineered drawings for the planning commission. There's other communities, you give them a sketch. The way we're set up is that they pretty much have to give us an engineering drawing. We have 2 departments that are saying, or maybe 3. Two. We have 2 departments that are not recommending approval at this time. And it's a slippery slope if we say, well, this one's different, because the next guy's gonna come in and be like, hey, I have to get this done, it's fine, just approve it. And maybe their stormwater doesn't work how they have it, and it's not an easy fix, and they have to totally redesign the whole entire site. And what we approved doesn't apply anymore because the site's completely different. So I'm kind of veering more towards,
that could happen.
you know,
I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, I really feel like I'm kind of in the middle on this. I can understand that you have financial concerns. This is a project.
Well, I
that-
mean, these are going to be rental properties. We're going to own this for a long period of time. We don't want our buildings to flood. We will make the stormwater work for that site. And especially Oakland County standards switched in November from like a storage tank for a 10-year storm to a 100-year storm. It was a big change that I was unaware of when we went under contract. So it's a huge,
they did, but they changed the allowable outlet, so it's actually, in some ways, it's actually, you're storing for less volume now with the 100-year, because it's a 100-year storm, but you can release
A larger
a
outlet.
larger amount of water.
okay.
Yeah, I knew something.
So you can flood down.
So it's flood downstream, right?
Right.
to kind of and we'll go through and I guess see where everyone is. Probably gonna have to be someone makes a motion and then we see what happens. But you know, I find myself a little bit torn. I'm sympathetic to your concerns. This is a project that I think would be really great for the city. I think we're all in agreement that we like the look of it. We like the layout, the general concept of it. I just want to make sure we're not putting ourselves in a position where we're tying our hands for future projects and applicants. So if something could be crafted where it's very specific to this site and we feel fairly confident that there's a workable solution if your proposal doesn't work for stormwater, then I would feel comfortable or okay moving forward. I just wanted to throw that note of caution out there.
I do have a comment on the grading. Along the south end, you have curb denoted. That's 6-inch curb along the south side.
I believe that was the general curb, yeah.
Okay. The grade in the middle, due south of the catch basin, looks like it might be a typo, because right now it's a gutter at 704.5. So the top of curb would be 705, which the flow arrows that you're showing from the property line to your parking lot would not. It wouldn't do that. You'd need to
That's a high point.
cut a curb or cut the curb or lower it, or probably want to lower it. It looks a little steep. That's why I'm thinking it's probably a typo.
In the middle, right there?
Yeah, right in the middle. 704.5.
Yeah. I think that's just supposed to follow the contour, so yeah, that looks like a typo.
There were a few other items that the staff report suggested. They're fairly minor, but we should probably touch on them. One being the higher parapet potentially along the southern roof deck, which I know you opted to potentially provide additional screening instead in the forms of plants. Or you would opt for that?
Like a fence of some sort, but I really don't see the need for it, because I mean the edge of the rooftop deck is 60 feet away from the property to the south, and you know already has a 42-inch high parapet wall inside the deck, so we're not going to provide any like uplight there or anything like that. So you know, putting additional screening is just going to make the building look even taller, and that's what I was trying to accomplish with the sloped staircase, so you don't really see it from street view as much. So putting a wall or extend the parapet up, you know, I'm open to a fence of some type, but I don't see the need for it.
So along 12 Mile right now, you have some plantings shown on your rendering?
Yeah, that's just like what the tenant might do. That's not what. It's just like having a chair inside the living room. It's just a piece of furniture.
Okay, so I don't know if you'd be willing to consider uniform plantings along the back.
On the rooftop deck?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Something that can grow a little higher as the time goes on is not an issue.
What does the rest of the commission think of the parapet or plantings or a fence?
I don't know about maintenance of the fence.
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna see the rooftop decks from the ground, and that's what the intention of the fence was, right? I just don't think you're gonna see it.
I think it was more that the people who are on the rooftop decks are not peering down into the yards of the residential properties that are to the south.
But they're,
I mean, I don't think they're gonna be able to.
The building directly south of us is a duplex, and their whole backyard is just a parking lot. So I don't expect there to be an issue with this.
I tend to agree with the applicant in a way. Now, that building could change, and that's fine, but it's no different than one of our big box houses peering down into their neighbor's little bungalow or ranch. Or the noise, I mean, people have loud deck parties, or on my porch, loud front porch parties. So, you know, it's just part of living in the neighborhood, and I don't see how it's different than any other, I shouldn't say any other, but different than the situations we already have in our city with your neighbors.
Okay.
I tend to agree with that too. I don't foresee people like staring over to like look at somebody 60 feet away.
and if they're really wanting to, they
floors
can get a
down.
ladder.
They could probably do it from
That's
a
their
window
thing.
somewhere.
I mean,
too.
I've heard, but like, I don't really think we need a fence up there or make it any higher. I kind of like how you've shortened it and angled the stairwell.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big building on 12 Mile and shocking to a lot of people, I think. So it kind of doesn't look like it's as tall.
Yeah, because that parapet, not including the stairs, is like 30,
Yeah, and
32 feet.
It's
32.
not really adding value to the aesthetic or privacy to the neighbors. I don't
Yeah.
think so.
Okay, how about the windows or architectural treatments on the west facade?
The blank wall drives me a little crazy.
It does me too.
I didn't catch that. Would you?
The blank wall
Okay.
is just it's a
Well, that's
very,
a property line. It has a fire rating. It's hard to put windows in it.
Can you put a mural on it?
That's what I was thinking.
I've done murals at Folio, the business that we own.
Yeah.
We have murals that tends to flake, a lot more maintenance. The material type that we're doing here has, a nice texture to it. I know it's a stark wall, but, it's not like a CMU wall that you see like in Royal Oak building right on the property line. So we are spending a lot of money on that material choice.
Can you kind of just, I don't know, make a little variation like the front color?
I have an
break
idea.
up a big brown gray wall.
Where there's a step in the back. It's about 20 feet wide. I can take the brick all the way up right there, and that will get to the point of no material more than 50%, which will comply with the section. It's just going to add more to my cost, which, if that's the deal breaker, then I'll totally do that.
But you have two different colors metal, right?
Yeah, there's the coping, black metal, the very top rooftop staircase. That will be a black metal panel, more like a standing seam. Maybe they will be a little rigid in there too. And then the brick, like I said, and then the actual majority of it, the siding, which is a warmer color. It's not going to be very stark.
What about some artistic metal or something, some like sort of?
Just trying to keep with the clean line, mid-century vibe of Berkeley. So,
I like that you threw that in
aesthetically
there.
pleasing. I like it, but I can incorporate the brick and it will comply with the section. I forget what the section was, but.
So I think also maybe something that, because I appreciate what the applicant is trying to do is to try and minimize any site plan amendments so that they don't have to come back to planning commission. But I think Chair Kapelinski, you talked about this, is that you could make your conditions and
Okay.
then final approval needs to come back to planning commission before it goes to building permits. You could add that step if you wanted. You're gonna have, based on what you're talking about between engineering and whatnot, you're gonna have a lot of loose ends. And it might be better if it comes back to this body, for this body to give it final approval before it goes to building permits. So you would still have a conditional site plan approval. It's just that the administrative check of all those conditions would be at planning commission, and you could ask that.
Does that satisfy your need for whatever you have to turn in for financing?
So do I have to go in front of site plan approval again?
No,
Or
so-
would it just be going through?
What would happen is you would have a site plan approval subject to a number of conditions this evening. And one of those conditions would be the step after this, which is where you would usually turn in your plans to the staff and they would make sure that you've met a couple conditions and then they would stamp it approved. Instead of it going to staff for that final review and stamp approval, it would come back to us.
And staff.
And staff, yeah.
And staff.
I think that would work. I think the biggest issue was the setbacks and the design, because it's construction budget that's mainly holding everything up. So the one I'm just passing around is the sketch I drew, I guess 4 hours ago now, of the brick extending up on the back of the.
Oh, this is the west side?
Yeah, that would be the west side. So I guess send that brick up, and then it would be in section 138-678. There's no facade alterations do not change the surface material more than 50% of any one facade. So that would comply. It's just adding, a good chunk of money brick-wise.
And we're not looking to increase your cost. We're just looking to break up the
Yeah.
facade.
The solid pipe might break my budget right there for the pea gravel, but we're gonna go through all that.
I mean, if the,
So you could place a condition, instead of trying to figure this out here,
Yes.
is to break up the facade in some way, whether via landscaping, paint, or facade material
Art would be
change.
fine.
Art, whatever. Like, you could specify 4 options, and that it comes back to you. And I'm going to highly recommend you take that as a condition, also because whenever this comes back, I may not be sitting in this seat. And so with staff changes, I'm doing my best to keep everything
And we
on
appreciate
paper and
it.
things like that.
Right.
But I think it would be a better thing for it to come back to you as a group to make sure all these items are checked off. Because what I'm also hearing from the applicant is like, you changed things this week and da-da-da-da-da. But when we get to site plan approval, final, and building permits, these things cannot change.
yes, I agree. So I like that idea. I think that it solves both of our problems. You get some assurances of approval on your setback waivers and things this evening. And we have the opportunity to make sure that you're able to address all of the conditions that are outstanding for us.
So my own
Go ahead.
2 cents worth. I don't have a problem with that, the west facade. I
Okay.
would be a vote not to have that as a condition, that particular revision as a condition. Given the context of where it is, and the theme of the building, I think it's okay. That's just my taste, I guess.
Okay.
I agree. It's fine for me the way it is. I don't need that condition.
Okay.
But
I would prefer to keep the building the way it is shown there, so.
I bet you.
Our design guidelines very specifically call out no blank walls, that walls should have some interest in it.
Get brick in the bottom.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessary.
No pedestrians should be walking on
I
that
just-
property anyway, so.
No, they won't be.
Okay. So, who wants to try their hand at one?
I
a
have one
motion?
more item.
Go ahead, Marty.
And this comes up on 50%. We need a dumpster detail.
Yeah, we could,
Oh,
They're
is that
always the
not a-
same,
yeah.
but there isn't one. Staff can look at it, boom, done. Brick matching the building on the outside, and block on the inside, however it is, 6 feet high, whatever the numbers are. That's not gonna be, that'll be a condition on the approval, but that must be submitted. And one more thing. I don't know what the heck a Funder Max siding is. I've never seen it. I didn't look it up. What is it? We normally want samples of materials. I'm not worried about the brick. I'm not worried about it. I just don't know what that siding is.
It's gonna be a rain screen. So and it's just a wood. It's like a printed on metal or an HPL, like a high pressure laminate type.
Oh, so it's a wood printed on metal?
Yes.
There's a lot of those products.
Yeah, we're
out.
just looking at low maintenance. We don't want to.
Okay.
I would love Shishugibon on there, but the maintenance of the so much exposure of that site to the sun would just bake each facade a different color, and so we were looking at something will hold true for an extended period of time.
Did you get a color warranty on those things?
I believe so. Yeah. It's like
West?
Yeah. And then the dumpster. There will be a dumpster detail on the building permit, brick to match the base, and then I would like to do a composite gate so I don't have to maintain a cedar gate at all.
That's fine.
And your bike rack's kind of hidden. Maybe flip the dumpster in the bike rack. Bike rack is in a location that says, "Please steal me."
Yeah, that was
Like,
in the sketch plan. You guys really wanted the bike racks, and then seeing that these are each individual has a 1.5 car garage, I figured most people probably gonna keep their bike inside their garage. So we were just gonna put one 3-foot hoop bike.
Yeah, my comment is flip it to the
Yeah.
north side of the trash container because it's kind of hidden, and if somebody wants a bike there, he's got a perfect shield to snap the lock. So maybe just flip those two.
North side, you said?
North side of the trash. Yeah, again,
Yeah,
shifting your
no
trash
problem.
container down a little bit isn't going to affect anything.
Actually, it keeps my snow plow in a better location too
Sure.
if I push all my snow that way, so.
Sure.
If I flip the bike, so.
Just that's a minor thing. I mean, that's not going to make or break any site plan decision we make, but it's just hidden from view from the owners. I don't see anything else that I had. We had a whole list of items here.
The only other thing that I could think of is the photometrics. We still didn't have the front light output on the front facade, just because there's a light pole right there, and we're waiting for someone to tell us what that wattage was.
We're not worried about
Okay.
the front. You're going to have some kind of a recessed, you're going to have some kind of a recessed light fixture at each front entry porch.
The front door is pushed in like 2'4", and we just picture a 4-inch can light on the soffit part, so nothing gonna be pushed outwards at all. It's only downwards.
And did you consider, and this is just because as I've said before, I can't resist, did you consider, I understand why your balcony is where it is. That can be kind of an expensive detail, doing a little plaza there. Did you consider putting your balcony on the second floor off the dining room and hanging it in lieu of that?
Yes, I just didn't like the look of it.
Well, now that you're set back 8 feet.
Also, the front facade was getting so much of a brick-like structure, and your ordinance say like, oh, try to step back the third floor. So I was just trying to give some variation to the front facade, and it just seemed like the best bet. But I'm also a stickler on details of building it, because I'm gonna be the one building this as well. And it's I'm
Well,
already thinking
I'm
about
not
it.
necessarily saying, I like how it's stepped back, and that's a good thing. But instead of having the balcony up off the master bedroom, have it down a level off the dining room. But
Yeah.
that's just a thought.
Yeah, and you do have to go into the master bedroom to get to the rooftop deck. There was some issues with the tight site and trying to get at least 7 units in there.
Hey, these are funky little units. They're gonna have funky little things to them, so. Okay.
Was one of the conditions, so we were talking about the stormwater, it was Public Works and HRC, right?
Correct.
So there's also listed RCOC approval?
Correct.
So that, okay.
That's always, yeah.
That would be in there too.
We submitted for a preliminary plan. They just haven't got back to me yet. So everyone's just so backed up and time constraints.
That's only for 12-mile utilities though, I think, isn't it?
That's probably, yeah, if you have utilities tapping in out there.
Yeah, we don't have any drive aisles going
Drive.
off the 12 mile. We're actually removing a drive aisle off 12 mile, so I don't see any issues there.
Making it better.
Yeah. I'm still curious about that traffic signal there. If they're gonna have anything to say, but.
Okay, so does anyone want to try their hand at a motion? Yes.
I've kind of been taking notes, and I can offer something that's based on your conversation.
Sure.
Welcome.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Sure.
So the motion would be to approve PSP 0622 with waivers for the setback on 12 Mile based on the provision of front yards for pedestrian space, setbacks, the waiver of the setbacks on Phillips and the side yard setback. So the building is parallel to 12 Mile, creating a better pedestrian space on 12 Mile and Phillips. Waiver of transparency for what is shown on the site plan based on the finding that the site plan as proposed meets section 138-678 with the conditions of Road Commission of Oakland County approval by City of Berkeley Department of Public Works and consulting engineer Hubble Roth and Clark approval, and that the conditions of approval are finalized with a check at Planning Commission.
Can I add 2 things to that suggestion? Sorry.
I didn't make it, so.
Yeah. So this would
somebody
be
else
for
needs to
someone
make
to move. the dumpster screening detail be included and the bike rack on the north side, be moved to the north side of the dumpster.
Dumpster enclosure detail provided. And bike rack moved to, you said the north side?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. North side of the site or north side of the building?
North side of the north side of the dumpster.
North side of the dumpster. Thank you.
And what about, do we take a straw poll in the west, breaking up the west elevation? I don't care, so I'm at 0 on that.
Okay.
So,
Who wants them to break up the west side?
I would prefer it. Or art or something.
It looks like we lose.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so who wants to move that
So
really?
moved.
Okay.
That Megan, that would be strike from the section 1138678.
Okay, who wants a second?
Support.
Richardson with support?
Yes.
I didn't make a motion tonight.
Okay. Bartis.
Try to keep it. Yes.
Dahlin.
Yes.
Kempner.
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
He's absent. Stern.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Kapelanski.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, we will see
Good
you
luck.
back still.
Oh, and you did say he's gonna be coming back.
Yes.
And Megan, thank you for making the motion to speed
Yeah,
things up.
thank you.
Here the rest of the night.
Speaking of that, let's keep moving.
So a couple things.
A couple things. Liaison reports. Who has anything to report?
I'll make it quick. DDA mostly talked about their budget, and there was another healthy conversation about crosswalks. They're still really focused on trying to get them in on Coolidge. In some way, shape, or form, there was a task force that was going to meet, and so supposed to hear this month more.
Environmental met, we welcome some new members, we're still looking for additional members, and we're probably gonna do a bike corral at the Art Bash.
Oh, cool. Okay. Nothing else? Commissioner comments?
I do have one comment. I really do appreciate the motion, Megan, that you put that together. And also, you've gotten us into the habit of making findings for the various decisions that we make. And our ordinance and state law says we have to base our decisions on findings. And I've pushed for having that made explicit, and you're doing that for us, so thanks for that.
Happy to do so.
I also can appreciate, and that nobody's left here, but having the information up on the screen so that the audience can easily see what we're talking about, I think is wonderful.
And for the city council person, what's the mayor's crack study group doing since the rec center came up tonight? That was been a year or two.
Yeah, I haven't heard any recent update on when they might meet next, but I know that is the goal.
So I can.
Goals to meet?
Are you on that?
I can fill in a little bit,
Okay.
right? Because I've been bugging him since like last summer.
Yeah.
And there was a group that was interested in coming and like listening to what the city wanted and then putting something together as part of like getting their bid. And so Parks and Rec and Teresa from Parks and Rec and Dan were talking to them. That was as of last summer. And we're supposed to find some direction to move in, but that's the last I heard. So I don't know that the community center committee is like a functional thing anymore.
I'm sure COVID put a crimp into
For
the
sure.
whole process, but let's hope somebody picks up the ball.
Okay.
I just have one staff comment.
Yeah.
I am on vacation next week.
Hey.
Oh, have fun, yeah.
Thank you. So Ben Carlisle will be available to you in my stead. So I will email all of you tomorrow with his contact information.
Okay.
And then if you need anything from the building department, Kim Anderson is a wealth of knowledge, and I will also include her email.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Who wants to
Motion to adjourn?
Support.
Could you call the roll, please?
10:53.
Yeah, 10:53.
Are you going somewhere fun?
We're going to, hopefully, I still don't believe it, we're going to the UK.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, hopefully we're
Nice.
getting on a plane on Friday, nobody getting COVID and nobody.
Yeah, cross your fingers,
Back
right?
wood for you.
Just, you still have to call the roll.
Oh,
Gosh.
Do we? I thought we did.
Okay.
Didn't need it.
So not to extend this any farther, but we can voice vote, right?
I don't see a reason
always
to
did.
do a roll.
Okay. Why can we not voice vote on the minutes?
Yeah.
Every other community I've been to voice votes on the minutes and voice votes on the agenda and does not call the roll on anything but,
Because that just drags everything. out.
right, so,
I will check.
yeah.
I'd like to streamline
Okay.
Just
two
yes?
minutes.
Yes, yes,
Put it out
yes.
here.
Yes.
Everybody said yes, okay.
Yes.
I think Megan wants to go home.
Yes.
Sorry, Lisa, you didn't win.
If I go twice, I would.
Please lock it up.